episode 83 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary with Catherine
and Kristen, where we believe there's nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hi, Catherine.
Hey, Kristen.
So, it is our Would You Rather this week, and it is, would you rather have your best friend or your mom pick what you read for an entire year? And we picked this because it's super easy.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. I don't know about you.
Don't you?
I do. I do know about you. And I do know about your mother. Hey, Rhonda. Yeah. If my mom were to pick books for me for a year, they would be hella Catholic. Like, it would be... I don't... There's nothing... That's it. It would just be like... I think it would be the Bible. It wouldn't even be in, like, I don't know. It wouldn't even be like in a this is your sins kind of way, but it would be like a, what other books are there? Obviously, I would have to choose best friend because we read the same books anyway.
It's true.
Literally. Sorry, wait. But literally, I went on vacation like a week ago and had to message you constantly about the new book that I was reading that we're going to be reading for next month. But we've also both finished and now are going to read. So I messaged you constantly about it. Like, and there were many times I didn't even have cell service because I was like literally on islands and shit. And I was just messaging you. And by islands, I mean like in the Atlantic Ocean. Like not tropical
ones.
Off Nova Scotia. But yeah, I was literally messaging you constantly about them.
Yeah, but I loved it.
Oh, of course. And
I was
that's
here
what
for it.
But yeah, so obviously I would have to go with, like, you're going to have to pick up my books.
Yeah. But, like, also, I wonder, like, okay, so if we're talking best, and I'm adding a caveat, like we always do. Like, so are we
love
saying...
caveats.
Are we saying that I have to pick your books? And, like, can I keep you in mind picking your books? Because, like, you're a little bit more adventurous than I am in terms of books. So, like, would I be able to, like, go to the bookstore and be like, I think Catherine would like this, and bring it to you?
It doesn't matter. Because you're going to still, if you pick what you like, you're still more adventurous than my mother. So it doesn't matter. You can pick. I will read the same books that you want to read for a full year. Instead, like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I would say the same thing. My mom obviously would not get me the Bible, though. Like,
yeah,
my mom would try, but I think my mom would go for, like, what's the say? She would, like, go to someone and say, my daughter likes Harry Potter and Nora Roberts, because that's what she, like, knows from childhood that I like.
That might get you something good.
It might.
Like, that might get you something that we don't even know about.
Maybe.
What's a Harry Potter and Nora Roberts mix? Somebody please send us a message. Do
you know what I think it would be? I think it'd be the X-Hex. I think if you went to a bookstore and said, what's a Nora Roberts Harry Potter crossover? I think you would get the X-Hex.
You're right. Yeah.
Telling you.
Listen to our episodes from 1 year ago now. October of 2022.
October. Yes, we did the X-Hex by Erin Sterling, and it was great.
It was, yeah.
I had a great time.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So, but yeah, I think that's what my mom's frame of reference is for my, like, but at the same time, nobody in my family, nobody that I know, besides you, would, and one other friend, has ever dared buy books for me. Like, ever. Because, like, everybody's afraid of, like, what I've already read. And rightfully so.
For sure. Like, there's so much.
Anyway,
I
would still rather it be you.
Yeah, of course.
Well, like, I think that, okay, so if it was my mom, I would just get, like, Harry Potter / Nora Roberts crossovers.
Yeah.
Which might not be terrible.
No.
Or, like, she would just, like, go into the teen fiction section and be, like, closing her eyes and just point and big or something like that.
Which, like, teen fiction, sometimes that's ACOTAR.
Yeah.
That is in teen for some reason.
That is ACOTAR.
And, like, Lee Bardugo is in there. Like, there's some good shit in there.
Yeah. I just feel like she wouldn't pick the good stuff. But
no, not on purpose.
No. My sister, I think I might have better luck with.
Oh, 100%.
Because at least she knows, like, the type of stuff we read.
Yeah.
But I also think she might try and push me out of my comfort zone. Yeah. And, like, try and give me stuff to be like, look, this is a good book, you should read it. And I'll be like, no! And smack it away.
That's fair. Yeah.
But, anyway, we both knew what the answer to this would be.
100%. And, like, I think my sister would be better than my mother as well, but my sister would also give me, like, she more reads, like, biographies and, like, that kind of shit. And which, like, sometimes I enjoy myself a good biography. Like, I read...
The Jenna McCurdy one?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, but, like, I've read that one, and I, like, really appreciated it. And there's other ones, like, I read Crying in H Mart, and that one was popular for a bit, and it was a good read about, like, grief and, like, how hard losing somebody is. Like, that kind of shit. Mm-hmm. Like, I've read a few real books, but, like, they also just get too emotional for me, where I'm like, I need fantasy. Like,
yeah.
I need fantasy, I need romance, I want all of that. That is what I want.
Yeah. I think the last biography I read was literally Drew Barrymore's, when she published hers.
I have never read it.
It's pretty good. It's very, like, it's not a cohesive, which, again, like, I guess this comes from reading, like, fiction, where you get, like, a cohesive story, right? Like, you get a beginning, middle, and end, but hers is more like, an amalgamation of, like, short stories. It's like, here's this thing that happened in my life, and here's a chapter on it, and here's something else that happened in my life, and a chapter on it. But, like, it's not in, like, chronological order, and it doesn't really flow as one big novel. Like, it's just a bunch of little stories, which I guess is the point of a biography. Like,
well, yeah, some of them, I guess. It's hard, because, like, I don't read enough of them to know what I want from them, I guess. But yeah, I agree.
Anyway, if any of our families are listening...
Hi, Heather.
Don't buy us books. Well, if you do buy us books, ask the other person first.
Yeah. Well, no.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi, Heather.
We love you.
We do. So we're going to get into it now, because we don't want to spend any more time on this when we have a million things to get to.
Because we were like, this is so fast, let's not spend time on it. And here we are. Let's go.
So, just a heads up, this is not a spoiler-free zone, and things might get saucy. So, we are on our last week with Heir of Fire.
This is when it turns. This book is when the story becomes...
And I'm super excited. We don't know when we're going to do Queen of Shadows yet, but we are definitely doing Queen of Shadows, and I'm super stoked because that one is my favorite. Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be super soon for anybody that's, like, worried about it, because, like...
If you're only here for Throne of Glass series, you're you're gonna be waiting a little bit. We got a few books in the pipe that we gotta tackle first.
Yeah, and like Crescent City, the newer one coming out soon. Like, we got to get some shit done before that. And like, if you've read Crescent City 2, you understand what shit we got to get done before that. So we'll get there. We will get there. But it's gonna take some time.
Yeah, but I'm super excited for when it does. Anyway, so last week with Heir of Fire, we are reading chapters 54 to 68. So last week, just a quick recap. Manon and Abraxas jump off the ledge to make the crossing. We don't know if they've made it yet. Dorian and Sorsha have gotten super close and like she's sleeping over all the time. She wants them to take their relationship out of the shadows, but he's like, nah girl, slow your roll. Dorian and Chaol have had words where Dorian tries to make Chaol a better person and it doesn't work. Chaol and Aedion have had words where Chaol thinks Aedion's a terrible human, but Aedion's like, nah, girl, like,
you're the terrible human.
Yeah. And Dovier and Calicula have been, I don't even know what to say.
Executed. Purged, yeah.
Of life.
Fuck.
Yeah, it's pretty darn bad. And Celaena and Rowan have developed a closer bond as Celaena has gotten better control of her magic. And they are in the process of being attacked by a bunch of Adarlanian soldiers and 3 Valg princes. And they are essentially like demons inhabiting human bodies. And last week they like swarmed her. She sort of like gave up. Her magic like went out. She was so weak and tired that she like hit rock bottom. They swarmed her and they are essentially making her relive her worst nightmares over and over and over again. And the very last thing that we read last week was that they reached the bottom of the seemingly endless abyss that is her soul. They don't actually explicitly say it's her soul, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Also, I guess Rowan's cadre have arrived.
Yes, the cadre came, took one look at Celaena and was like, nah, we don't need to help you, and then left.
We're like, nah, bruh.
So, our very first scene in this section is a flashback to the time when Celaena is actually watching the King of Adarlan and Prince Dorian visit Terrasen for the first time. And more specifically, they're visiting the city of Orinth. And Celaena is watching the whole procession approach the castle from a balcony. And even at the age of 8, because again, this happens around the time that, you know, like, Adarlan takes over, like, it's only a few days earlier. So even at the age of 8, she can really tell that the castle is tense. So she can tell that this visit is important and that people are tense and ill at ease. And she says that, like, everybody seems quiet and distracted, like, even her parents.
Yeah.
So she has to wear a crown to the formal introduction. And even Aedion is wearing a crown and clean clothes.
Cute.
Yeah. So, Lady Marian is Celaena's nursemaid and actually the mother to Elide. And we've heard the name Elide a few times in this book. Mm-hmm. She is, I guess, a similar age to Celaena, a bit quiet, but not currently at court. So,
but her father is the Lord of a land.
Yes. The Lord of Perinth.
Sure.
Yeah, he's the Lord of Perinth, which is like a province in Terrasen. So, Lady Marian comes to get them, comes to get Aedion and Aelin and directs them to their throne on the dais. So Aelin has like a cute little throne next to her father, and Aedion just sits sort of on the side of her throne. Mm-hmm. So here's what I wonder. So she's the princess. Is she the heir, or is her father the heir first?
That's a good question.
Because, like, it's her uncle that is the king right now, or her great uncle.
Yeah.
Right?
Which
so,
is like, not... Yeah. This is why, like, once we started getting into the lineage, I was like, my brain can't take this. Because I was like, it's her uncle, but her cousin is not related to her uncle. So, like, Aedion must be on...
the mother's side.
Yeah, and the royal lineage is on her father's side.
But he is still a prince. So it must...
Why can't he be the king?
But could it be because... So, like, are Aedion's mother and her father brother and sister? So sort of like the royal family... I'm going, like, straight to the UK right now. But, like... So, like, Prince William... So, like, there's King Charles is the king.
Yes.
So then Prince William is the next in line for the throne. If he dies, it's any of his children, right? Charlotte first and then the other two. Right?
Right. Yeah.
Prince Harry is William's brother, but the children come before Harry. So is it like that? Like... So the great uncle is the king. He has no children, and all of his siblings are dead. Therefore, the next in line to the throne would be Aelin's dad.
Mm-hmm.
Then, because he has a child and he's the heir, she would be next in line. And then after her would technically be Aedion's mother if she was alive.
Okay, but... Right? But I get what you're saying. However, I also honestly didn't realize how complicated it was until this read. Because I was like, oh, it was like the first time and second time and third and fourth, every time before now that I read this book, I thought that when her parents died, they were like, I thought that they were the king and queen. I now.
Oh.
I just didn't really realize. I was like, oh, they must be, because that's the only thing that makes sense in my brain. Mm-hmm. And now I'm like, oh, it's her fucking uncle is the king. Yes. Cool. Got it. Understand. But my issue is, if it were the case that Aedion is somehow in this line of becoming ruler, then no one can be pissed at Aelin for what she does, as they are in the next books. Because people are fucking pissed at her for how she's lived her life. Like, if he thought that she was dead and he was the heir, the way that he has lived, and I'm not saying that he, like, did anything wrong, obviously, but if he was actually able to be... Like, I don't think that he could take the throne. Like, because I think he would have. I think he would have fought and taken the throne. Like, I don't think he would have submitted to the king if he could actually take the throne. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel you. No,
I don't understand. I don't understand the lineage.
Yeah.
I know it's, like, probably a quick Google, but it's not, because my brain cannot process.
Yeah, there goes my theory. It's gone.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
Because nobody else has taken the throne.
No.
I just don't, like, her uncle died. Honestly.
Yeah.
I don't. I actually thought that the uncle was, like, brother to her mother. Which is even further off than makes any sense.
Yes. Yeah, no.
Nothing makes sense.
Nothing makes sense. It's fine.
Everything's fine.
It's fine.
We'll figure it out for a future book. This is not the book that we're worried about how her lineage makes sense.
No. So yeah, moving on.
Yeah.
So they're sitting in the throne room. The King of Adarlan comes in, and she immediately gets a bad vibe from him. She says that she hates him because he doesn't smile, and he literally stares at her so hard. Her father says something, and is like, "Is there a reason why you're staring at my daughter so hard?"
Which you're
creepo.
you should know better, sir.
Creepo. And she also says that, he completely ignores his own son.
Which I love that we're meeting Dorian in the scene, and she's thinking about Dorian. And, I hope Dorian remembers this scene. I love this background for them.
Mm-hmm.
I do. And not in a romantic way at all, because I do not think of them romantically together.
No.
In any way. But I love that they've met each other, and he's like, oh.
Yeah.
He can think back on this and think of who. Yeah.
Yeah. Love it. Anyway, so they have a big feast for the King of Adarlan and all of his posse. And Aelin obviously has to sit with the children. So Aelin, Aedion, and Dorian sort of sit at the end. And she sees Dorian eating, and she tells him that he eats like a fine lady. Because I guess he is very princely and very proper, and she is not at all.
Yeah. And it's sad because, as an adult, reading between the lines, you're like, if he doesn't act like this, his father will beat him.
Yeah.
Reading it, that he gets beaten by his father if he doesn't act well, and she's like, this is weird, why are you acting like that? And he's like, I have to, but he doesn't realize that it's weird. So it's a whole, it's so shitty, but it's a thing.
Yeah. Anyway, so she feels a pounding in her head, but she ends up dismissing it. And she actually offers to be Dorian's friend, but he tells her he already has a friend. The future Lord of Aniel and the fiercest warrior in the land, a.k.a. Chaol. Blech. Fiercest warrior at the age of 10.
Also,
not true, sir.
In the next 9 years, 10 years, what has he done? What has he done? What has he done?
No longer the future Lord of Aniel.
Well,
I guess he is, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the only thing he is.
Shit. Anyway, then she feels a stabbing pain in her head, so much that she feels black spots. And it sort of pauses, and she starts to feel better. And then it happens again. And she says she feels like something is trying to get in. Ugh. I know she's only 8, so she doesn't know, but I feel like, come on, parents, figure shit out. I
know. It's so bad. It's so bad.
So she tries to have some water to try and make herself feel better, but her magic is churning in her gut. So she stands up and she's wobbling. She can't keep her balance. So she goes to her mother, obviously, to try and feel better. And her mom notices that, she's burning up with fever, and she feels the magic surging and burning, so much so that she actually singes her mother's dress. And she says that she feels like a worm of darkness in her mind. And she's throbbing, and her magic is, acting of its own accord without, she can't control it. Yeah. And she's asking her family, to get it out. And she's starting to, yell, get it out! And, she feels the worm in her mind, and she feels like it won't let go. So she ends up lighting herself on fire with her turquoise flame. Her magic, obviously, trying to get the worm out of her head. But, she's at a dinner party full of people. And it's a fire. So, everybody is fleeing the feast. And, she starts to burn hotter and hotter. So her mother essentially uses her water magic to douse the flames, and she, like, encases Aelin in water and, like, shoves it everywhere she can, in her eyes, up her nose, down her throat. Like, she's essentially drowning her until she passes out so that the magic will stop.
Yeah. It's very reminiscent of last week when Rowan had to,
like, dump her in a bath.
Yeah.
Except he dumps her in a bath. He doesn't shove water down her throat.
He did, like, take the air away from her beforehand to, like, make her pass out so that she gave up the fire.
Yeah. So
it's like, I get it. And I get, obviously, why she had to do it. It's just so shitty. It's so shitty.
I have a love-hate relationship with this scene, and I'm really kind of, like, not sad that I have to do the notes for it, but I was still, like, it just makes me vomit. Like, not actually vomit, but I've noticed since I had kids, anything to do with sort of child endangerment or, like, mistreatment or, like, a child feeling anything upsetting really, like, makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
So, like, reading this whole scene, I'm, like, in a constant state of, like, queasiness because it's just so awful and gross, and I hate it.
Yeah. But, like, it's so shitty. What are you supposed to do? That's the issue, is, like, what is the answer? Did her parents do the right or wrong thing? She went to her mother because she knew she had the water magic that could, like, help her.
To me, she went to her mother because she's a small child and she was sick, and, like, what gives you comfort? Your mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, ugh. And it doesn't stop here.
No. Yeah. It's shitty. But it's also, like, if that is no longer the thing that gives her comfort, then that's probably better for her. Going forward, if that was a thing that she went to her mother and then she was like, oh shit, this is no longer good, that's probably worked better for her in the long run, because fuck.
Yeah. Anyway, so the whole family thinks that Maeve was behind this attack, and, like, Maeve somehow coordinated her to lose control of her magic to sort of put a wedge between Adeline and Terrasen, because according to everyone at the time, Adeline already wasn't a fan of magic, and they were already they didn't trust magic. So, like, in their mind, it was totally Maeve because she was trying to make Adeline not trust them.
Yeah.
So 2 days later, her parents take her to their manor house. And they say it's for her to rest and settle, but she knows, even at 8, that it's to keep everyone else safe, because she's dangerous, which is just heartbreaking. So Aedion stayed in Orinth, and Lady Marion did come with them because she is her nursemaid. But her husband and Elide stayed behind, and she felt at the time like a monster that had to be contained and monitored, and, like, they sort of treat her like that. So Lady Marion, like, to pass the time, tells her stories. She told her the story of how she was a laundress in the palace at Paranth until Aelin's mom, Evelyn, met her and became friends with her and made her her lady-in-waiting. And this made the Lord of Paranth meet her and fall in love with her, and then they got married. So, like, she's coming from humble beginnings, this Lady Marion. Yeah. So one night, Aelin couldn't sleep, and her mother came to her room and gave her the amulet of Orinth. And she said that it has been passed down in the family for generations, and it was the heirloom prized above all else. And apparently there was a symbol of the Terrasen stag on it, and words engraved in a language that no one remembers.
What could that be?
Yes, I wonder what language that is.
Maybe we'll never find out.
Yeah. So her mother tells her never to take the amulet off and never lose it, and know that when she wears it, she is loved.
Ugh. Which is beautiful. Like, ugh.
I know.
And it's not to spoil it, but like, this is what you hope your last words to someone are.
Yeah. So, well, this is it. So she lost it the next night, because the next night is the night her parents died. So we have a little tiny break where Celaena in the present is like begging the Valg princes to end her suffering. But she's trying her best to like voice it out, but she can't speak. She's in so much pain and agony and reliving the horrors that she can't speak, even though she really wants them to kill her. So the next night, that's the night her parents died, and I don't really want to go too much into it because, again, like, it makes me want to like vomit. But Lady Marion is the one who found her in her parents' bed, covered in blood.
Yeah.
And she was terrified, but she bathed her, she cuddled her, and she protected her. And she, like, ordered people, like, go alert the king. Like, you know, she took charge, we'll say.
Yeah, she's badass.
Yeah. And when the assassins came to the house to kill Aelin, I guess, Lady Marion snuck her out of the house and made her run to the river and find a place to hide while she stuck up for her and, like, gave her as much time as possible to run. So essentially she sacrificed herself for Aelin. And the last thing she said to Aelin before she made Aelin run was to tell Aelid that her mother loves her. And Aelin she runs so far, and then she looks back, and she had to watch Lady Marion stand up for her. And she tried to attack the visitor and yell at him until he pushed her, and she just hit a table and her neck snapped. So I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, but she mentions that there was someone else.
Yeah.
That she didn't want to face. Like, there was someone else that helped her. And it was Lady Marion.
Yeah.
So as a child, she ran towards the river. She was hoping to get to a bridge. And she could feel the person chasing her. I think they were on a horse, and they were closing in on her and almost caught her, and she made it to the bridge, but it had been cut. Like, they thought ahead and cut it. And she didn't realize it until she, like, flung herself in between the two posts, and she just fell into the river. And she said that the moment that Lady Marion sacrificed herself for Aelin and for her kingdom, that's the moment that broke Aelin the most. And, like, I hate this. I hate it.
Yeah.
I don't hate it, but I hate it.
No.
Like, it still does make me sick to, like, think about, because I automatically picture my kids. Like, one of them is 8 years old. So, like, yeah. I imagine her witnessing that and trying to, like, run, and how petrified she would be. And I just, it makes my heart break. So.
Of course, yeah.
So Arobin found her and said that she thinks that he had taken her fear and her guilt and twisted it into hate. But the fact that she took Lady Marion's sacrifice and became a monster. Like, I mean, she became an assassin, but in her mind, it's the same thing. And that's why she can't go home. Because somebody sacrificed themselves for her so that Terrasen would have a future. And what has she done with it? Like, nothing. So she says that she feels so guilty because so many of her people were executed, including Lord Locken, who is Lady Marion's husband, and so many children that she should have protected, but she didn't. Like, she failed. And it's like, how would you have protected them at 8 years old?
Yeah.
Like,
but it's the same thing with Aedion, where, like, there's nothing you can do. It's so hard. Nothing any of them can do.
No. Anyway, so this is why she says she took Nehemia's death so hard, and what she couldn't tell anyone. The fact that Nehemia sacrificed herself, and it was worthless. Essentially because Aelin feels worthless. So the Valg princes just jump from memory to memory, and they're just making her relive all of her most challenging moments and all of her guilt and all of her grief. And she just wants them to end it, to, like, take her back to Aderlin and just throw her at the king's feet, if that's their plan. But, so, we gotta keep in mind that, like, it's like a dream and a dream and a dream, because physically, she is standing on the battlefield still, but then her mind is in this abyss, and then in her mind, in the mind of her mind, she's reliving all these moments over and over again. So, in her mind, the first one, in the abyss, she feels a small hand touch her cheek, and she looks up, and it is Aelin. So it's herself, as she was as a child. Essentially telling her to get up, because her getting up is a promise for a better life, because she can't, and she's saying she couldn't, because she had wasted everybody's sacrifice. And then one by one, Sam, Nehemia, her parents, her uncle, Lady Marion, all appear telling her to get up. The Valg princes then twist this vision so the people she loved are saying terrible things. You're a disappointment. You're everything I hate about the world. Better you die than shame us and betray us. You're a thief, a murderer, a liar, a coward. And she now knows that the King of Aderlin, like, she realizes that he's the one that put the worm in her head to separate the family and make them easier to take out. And she's thinking that she blamed herself this entire time, but it was the king's fault. Which I don't get, because in the flashback, they say that they thought it was Maeve's fault.
Yeah.
So, like...
Well, her parents thought, because her parents didn't... So, in the flashback, she was listening to her parents talk about it, and her parents were like, it must be Maeve, because they didn't realize that the King of Aderlin had... Because at this point, he's taken into his body.
Yes. But
so he's the one.
Yeah, I guess I just don't understand, like, if she heard her parents say, oh, it must have been Maeve, I don't understand why she would still think it was her. You know what I mean? Like, she heard them say it was Maeve. Why wouldn't she think it was Maeve?
I guess because she was 8.
Maybe.
At 8, you're like, everything is my fault. At fucking 13, you're like, everything is my fault. Like, there's no... Yeah. There's no getting out of it.
So, she obviously realizes that she loves her family, even if they hate her. And realizing and manifesting that love causes them to fade from the illusion. And all of a sudden, she feels solid ground beneath her. It's grass and moss, and she sees that it's Terrasin. She sees the mountains and the forest and the city of Orinth, and she's thinking that this was once her home, and it would be again. And she decides then and there that she is going to fill the world with the light of her city and with her gift, and anyone broken or lost would find it. And she knows that it's going to take a lot of light to drive out the darkness. And she's not afraid. She decides to remake the world for those that she loved, so that when she meets them in the afterlife, she would not be ashamed. And she would not abandon the people that have survived, because she was her queen. She was their queen. So this is her, like, realization moment that she's queen and she needs to step up and take that responsibility and just do the right thing and take ownership of that. So child Aelin tells her to get up once more, and she grabs her hand, and adult Aelin does get up. So we move now to Rowan's POV. So he obviously sees, I guess, Aelin. I'm calling her Aelin now because I feel like her taking a step towards her queendom is sort of her step away from her Celaena persona and towards Aelin Ashriver Galathinius, Queen of Terrasen. So, obviously she had that barrier of fire up, and Rowan sees the barrier fall, but the darkness does not advance on the fortress. Obviously, they're all too busy feeding and playing with Aelin. And he is being held by his two buddies, Gavriel and Lorcan. They're trying to, like, he initially was trying to run to her, and they were like, dude, no, you're gonna die. Like, stay here. So they're holding him. So he's trying to throw his magic at the darkness to free Aelin, but his wind does absolutely nothing. And he heard Lyria's voice in the darkness. So we know that, like, the darkness, like, manifests your greatest, like, fears and regrets and guilts. So obviously his is his mate, Lyria's, because he left her and then she was killed.
While she was pregnant with their child.
Yeah. So he hears her voice in the darkness. So obviously that's where they're going with him. But he also knew that Aelin had to still be alive, because after weeks of training, they had breathed in each other's scents and became bonded. So, like, he knew she was alive, but also could tell she was being tormented. And a part of me is like, really? This is what this is? You breathe, you got used to each other's smells, so now you're bonded? Sure, man. Like, whatever helps you get through the day. But also, like, just the absolute whiplash I have from him hating her guts to him being like, she can't die, is painful.
Get it.
Yeah. So he wants his friends to let him go, and they refuse. But soon they feel this, like, behemoth of power rising from the deep. And Rowan knows that burnouts came from self-imposed fears. And the creatures were feeding on Aelin's fears. But he's thinking, what if the victim walked through the fears and embraced them? And obviously that's what she did. And he sees her fire erupt from the darkness. And it's glorious. The fire reaches them, but it doesn't burn them. It's amazing. And he sees Aelin standing there, and she is engulfed in flame with a mark on her forehead. So she grabs two of the creatures on the mouths and just shoves her flame down their throats, and they just are burned to death. And
big fan.
Yeah, a big fan. I don't know what happens to the last.
I think it happens soon.
So Rowan then runs to her, and she sees him, and he actually notices, like, oh shit, she's close to real burnout. Because the last time she thought she was close to burnout with the fires, the bonfires, that you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, that wasn't anywhere close to burnout. Like, that was just you. So now, though, he can see legit burnout is coming for her. And he sees that she's exhausted. And, like, of course she is. She just had, like, a bunch of her worst memories of life ever, shoved in her brain and made her, like, relive them over and over. Like, it's not pleasant. So he can see that the other creature and Narok are, like, bracing. They're going to attack her. And he knows that his magic is obviously no good in this situation. Like, his little wind is not going to make a dent. But there is something else that he can do to help her. So he slices his palm open and reaches her and offers it. And she says that she knows that it will work because they are Karanem. So Karanem,
Of course.
you spoke about, I think it was 2 weeks ago?
I think it was last week.
Oh, do you?
It doesn't.
Anyway, it's like a process where if you are compatible and if your magic is compatible, then you can share magic, essentially. So she cuts her palm as well, and they grip their hands together, mixing their blood, and he tells her that he claims her too. Because at the last week she said, I claim you as my friend. So now he's responding, I claim you too. So she knew that this wasn't her end, as like the darkness is like settling very close to them and it's coming towards them. So she pulls from Rowan's power and shoves her light down Narok's and the last prince's throat. And Narok spears a vision in her mind of the future before she turns both of them into ash. And then we move to Sorsha's POV.
Oh, good.
Because who doesn't love a cliffhanger?
We do, because we listen and read Sarah J. Maas.
Yes. So Sorsha is busy trying to write a letter to a friend when Dorian walks in, nuzzling her neck, being all cutesy. And he helps her with her tonics and, like, making her day job when Chaol comes in and he is serious when he tells Dorian that he was right. And I'm just saying, sweet baby Jesus, thank God. Like, Dorian was right about Chaol? What?
Imagine.
It's a miracle.
Imagine.
It's a miracle. However, so Chaol tells them everything, both of them. Like, Sorsha's right there. And he tells them everything about magic and the wyrdkeys and their theory with the 3 towers. And Chaol can really see how happy Dorian is with Sorsha. And when he leaves, well, after Dorian leaves, Chaol tells Sorsha that Adderling could use a healer as its queen. And I'm just like, why does everything have to be about marriage with him?
And it's so shitty because she doesn't even want it. Like, in her head, she's like, oh, fuck, please stop talking. Like, it's, I don't know why he has to do what he's doing. It's,
yeah. Like, I appreciate the sentiment, like, building her up a little bit, I guess, to be like, hey, like, I would appreciate it. Like, I don't know, maybe trying to give her a bit of confidence and be like, hey, like, you're not all that useless. You know what I mean? Like, you're not that low down. You're not that terrible. Like, maybe the people here could get behind you as a queen. But, like, one, they haven't even had sex yet. So, like, their relationship can't be that serious. And two, like, Dorian's dad would still never, ever, ever approve. So they're stuck hiding in the shadows until he dies. Like, that could be for, like, 20 or 30 years still.
Yeah. I don't understand why this needs to happen. This scene only shows me how much Chaol can't read a situation. Because Sorsha's like, I don't want to be told that. Like, this is, I know, she knows where she's going, and it's where she ends up this week. Like, she understands what she is doing, and that she will not be queen, and she, like, comes to a reckoning with it, and, like, I don't know, I think that him saying this to her is just another instance of him being immature.
Yeah. I just don't understand why everything has to go to marriage. Him and Celaena were together for like a month, and he was like, I'm gonna marry her or run away with her. And now, like, him and, like, Sorsha and Dorian have been together for, like, maybe a month. And he's like, marriage! And I'm like, who asked you? Like, who even asked you?
Yeah.
Anyway, so Chaol asks Dorian, like, later on, if he can help him with with Dorian's raw magic. He wants to do a sort of a type of spell. So it doesn't require any actual magic, because obviously magic is banned. So Chaol gets some crystals and some red sand and makes this, like, weird triangle shape and puts, like, a bowl in the middle. So he wants Dorian to stay focused on his magic. To focus the magic, on the first crystal. And to draw a line along the sand to the second crystal and the third one, and then back to the first one, and so on, until the goal is going to be to freeze the water they've put in the bowl in the middle, to freeze it. So that's the plan, to use his raw magic and the 3 crystals in a triangle to freeze the water in the center. So he doesn't. He uses his magic. He freezes the bowl in the middle. So they figure out that now that they've accomplished this, they know how his father froze magic on the continent. Obviously, it's the 3 crystal towers.
Like we've been saying.
Yeah.
Without, like, we've said it, and we're like, oh shit, I don't think it was actually. But, you know.
Yeah.
I don't think we actually knew, but we do.
So, Chaol ends up, like, knocking one of the crystals over, and the bowl unfreezes. So they realize if they can knock down a tower, they can free magic. Which, again, I don't know why they didn't just test that theory out anyway.
It's a hard time.
Yeah, but he does it. So they're looking on a map, and they're looking at the towers on the map, and they know that the king is creating something somewhere near where the other 2 towers are. And they look around and they see the Ferrying Gap, which is where Manon is. And they also see the town of Orinth, which is where the new Lord Parrington and where the new Lord Parrington went with Caltine. She's not actually new. He's not actually a new guy, but new to us.
Not yet. Yeah. Sorry.
So, Chaol doesn't really want to knock down the clock tower tonight, because he's worried people will get hurt from, like, the falling debris, which I sort of appreciate.
Yeah.
But wouldn't be me. No, I lied. It probably would. So Dorian tells him thank you, actually, for what he's done, considering, like, it's been really risky to share information with the rebels, and he thinks that change is good, and he doesn't want to go back to his life before, and he doesn't want to fear the change that's happening. And Chaol said that he thinks in his brain that night Chaol slept like a king. Ooh.
Fuck.
So, We move to Celaena's point of view, so we're finally getting back to, it wasn't that long. We weren't that far gone that long. But we go back to her. She slept for like 2 days. And when she woke up, she learned that the keep only lost 14 people. Which is weird, because weren't there only like 30 that could fight anyway?
Yeah.
So they lost half their people?
They must not have lost half of them, or she wouldn't have said it wasn't many. But yeah, like, they must have lost, like, the weakest of the people, because Rowan said they're the ones that he left behind inside. Right next to the exit tunnel. Ugh.
Yeah. So she also said that, like, by the time she woke up, everything was all cleaned up, and Rowan had actually taken the Valg collars from the princes, took them into the woods, because he says he didn't trust his cadre with them.
He assumed they'd bring them back to Maeve, and then... Do we think that the princes are still in them?
I don't
know. Or did they get, like, burnt out? Yeah, me too.
I think the princes are gone.
Maybe you could summon a new prince.
Maybe. Anyway, so the whole cadre is leaving, and none of them even acknowledge Celaena. Like, they don't look at her. They don't acknowledge her. It's like she just saved everyone's ass, and it's like, who are you? I don't want to look at you.
Yeah, they also didn't have to come. So I'm not mad at them for any of the shit, really.
I feel like a lot of this is, like, because of Maeve.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right? Like, they're under her control, we'll say. So, like, they probably don't want her to be able to, like, look into their heads and see anything untoward.
Exactly.
Anyway, so Gavriel did acknowledge her. He's the only one that did. And Rowan is really pissed that none of them, except for Gavriel, like, offered to help her when they came in. Like, they all just ran straight for Rowan. So she's pissed.
He's pissed. Yeah.
Rowan is pissed, yeah. Rightfully so.
I don't... What were they gonna do?
I agree. However, like, you see someone, like, with their nose bleeding and, like, effort it's taking them to use their magic. Like, maybe at least, like, offer.
Yeah.
She would have said no.
She would have said go save Rowan, because that's the important thing. And the people. So, yeah, I don't know. And then, like, they're already in trouble for doing this for Rowan. Or they're going to be in trouble for it. You know, I just don't fault them as much. I know we need, like, tension, and we need some reason to be mad at everybody.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So, before Gavriel leaves, he tells both Celaena and Rowan to be careful, because the rest of the cadre had already given their reports to Maeve. So she'll know everything, because obviously they are all blood sworn to her, so she can make them tell her every single little thing. So he's like, be careful, like, showing anything.
Yeah, like, obviously it's going to be bad for Rowan that he was so emotional about her almost dying. Like, that is not something you want Maeve to know.
So Celaena tells him, like, thank you for hesitating when you came in. Like, I love that that's where we're at. Like, thank you for not helping me, but thanks for making a motion like maybe you would have helped me.
Potentially. This just seems backhanded. Like, why would you thank someone for that? That's silly.
So then he asks her how old she is, and she tells him 19, and he lets out a sad but relieved breath. As if that reaction is somehow important for our future.
I can't imagine why.
So that's a little Easter egg that we will talk about later. So Celaena and Rowan go for a walk in the woods, and they find a pool with a waterfall.
Fun.
And he sort of tells her now that she did this. Like, everybody will know that Aelin Galathinius is still alive and still fighting Adarlan. And the king will not stop hunting her now. And she said she sort of accepted that the minute she stepped out past the barrier. And she was thinking that she wishes she had something to give Rowan to protect him. Like, she gave Chaol the Eye of Celaena, and she says she wished she still had the Amulet of Orinth, and she would choose to give him that to protect him. So she thought about the amulet then, and she was, like, I guess thinking about it and picturing it in her head, and realized that the forgotten language on it were word marks.
What? Everything is coming together.
Oh my gosh. And she makes the assumption, the logical assumption, that the word key is inside that amulet.
Yeah.
Which is like,
smart.
Woo!
So but it was lost forever.
It was lost forever. So she's thinking that it's the word key that protected Terrasen's rulers for so many years and what saved her in the river. So, like, because the ruler of Terrasen always wore the Amulet of Orinth, they were always protected, which meant they always had, like, really long and prosperous rules, which made Terrasen, like, a prosperous country. So she's thinking, like, obviously if she fell in the river, she should have drowned, but the Amulet of Orinth saved her. So if it had saved her from the river, she obviously couldn't have lost it in the river. Which means that the person who found her must have taken it from her. That person being Arobynn Hamel.
Of course.
So she obviously assumes he still has it.
Yeah.
And
she also assumes he doesn't know what it is.
Yeah. So she realizes that she has to go back to Rifthold to get it from him. Rowan realizes, I guess sees the look on her face and realizes that, like, she figured something out. And he asks what it is, but she tells him that she can't tell him as long as he's bound to Maeve. Which is amazing forethought on their part.
Oh, 100%.
Like, I would have not thought about that. I would have been just so excited.
I figured it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So there was, like, this weird awkward silence at that point. At that point, because it's like, I can't tell you even though I trust you, but I can't because I don't trust your bitch of a queen.
Yeah. Fair.
So to, like, get rid of the awkward silence, she tells him her story from the beginning. Which is a story that not one other person has ever heard. Like, she's never told anybody about all the stuff with Lady Marian. So I think that's lovely that she tells. Although, again, I feel like it would take a million years to tell that story.
For everything. Every story that is told would take forever. I don't think we're taking that into account, ever.
So after she finished telling her story, she is finally able to summon a little droplet of water, which she's never been able to do. She's never been able to control that droplet of water, that drop of water magic from her mother. And now she finally can. And then she uses it to splash him in the face.
I love it.
And then he, in turn, just throws her whole body in the water. And then just jumps in after her, which is nice. So the two of them are having a little playful moment. It's just night and day, their relationship.
From the beginning.
Yeah.
That has also flourished as well as her magic.
It's sort of like, I have a little whiplash, because it went from, I hate you, to, let's play! Like, you know what I mean? It just seemed to go very, like, no to yes very quickly.
Yeah, they really did trauma bond.
Yeah.
And also, I guess a battle will do that to you. I don't know.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah, so after a week of healing, they leave. and she tells Emrys and Luca that if she should ever reclaim her kingdom, they are welcome to a place in her household. And, like, when I read that, I was like, so is she offering them a job? Like, if you ever want to come to Terrasen, you can be servants in my house?
No.
Like, is that what it is?
No, I think it's because, like, technically where they are now, it's like a crossover place to try to get into Dornell. Like,
Yes.
you go there to train and stuff. So it's not really a home. Yes, they've made it their home, but, like, most people, it's transient. So I think it's just if you want a home, you can come live in mine.
Oh, right, okay. I totally read this and I was like, is she offering them jobs? Like, does she want Emrys to, like, work the kitchens or something? Like,
and tell stories?
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, I guess the other thing, too, is, like, castles are giant, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we could assume.
But do we think that she's like, she did say household, right?
Yeah, she definitely said household.
Because I'm like, why wouldn't you just say, you can come to my kingdom and find a spot to live?
Yeah,
like,
well, that's it.
It is a bit weird.
Which is why I thought she was, like, trying to offer them jobs.
Maybe that was the point.
Because if it was like, you want to come, like, when I reclaim my throne, if you want to come to Terrasen, please come. Like, she could have easily said Terrasen. She could have easily said my country. Like, she could have said anything. She didn't.
Yeah.
She said my household.
You're real good in the kitchen.
Yeah. Come make me breakfast.
Yeah.
And, like, can you imagine, like, working alongside someone and then them all of a sudden being, like, the queen, and then you still having to work for them? It's like, bitch, I made you peel potatoes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway. So, we skip to Aedion's point of view. He's meeting with Murtagh and Ren. And Ren has since healed since his whole fight situation. And they received a letter from Saul in Syria, who we mentioned, like, way back in maybe week 2, maybe week 3. And he's offering them a visit. He's offering Murtagh and Ren to come visit to sort of feel him out about, like, is he a rebel or is he on the king's side? Like, where does everybody fall? Because obviously you can't say that shit out loud.
Yeah.
So obviously Ren and Murtagh are gonna go. Aedion, though, obviously has to stay. He's at the king's beck and call. Mm-hmm. Chaol is there too. He is going to NEL in just a few days. And Murtagh shows up. Like, so I guess Aedion, Chaol, and Ren are having this little conversation. And Murtagh walks in and tells Ren and Aedion that she's alive and in Wendelin.
Mm-hmm. Which they already knew. They just didn't believe.
So, like, I mean,
Aedion knew who she was.
Well,
but, like,
yeah. But I guess my question is, like, how much is the delay? So, like, all that stuff with Celaena happened. Mm-hmm. This must be at least a week later, because how else are they getting the news from that? It's a different continent.
Yeah, it must be a week later, because in Celaena's point of view, she slept for 2 days and then they had a week of whatever. So, like, I think it's, like, real time as the book, like...
Okay.
That's my assumption.
Okay, yeah, no, that's valid. I was thinking that, like, everything that we were reading about for Ren and, like, Aedion and all them were, like, a week behind everything we were reading about with Celaena and them.
It is confusing. Yeah. And, like, the last book? Ask me about timelines, because I don't know shit.
Yeah. No, valid. Anyway, so Murtagh is, like, super excited, obviously, because she is alive, and, like, they all thought she was dead. And Murtaugh says, like, he needs to leave today. He wants to let Terrasen know before the king tries to keep that news from spreading. So they know that the king is going to try and put a kibosh on people talking about what happened. So he wants to get ahead of it. And Murtaugh actually wants Ren to stay in Rifthold and gather information. So Chaol asks Murtaugh to also send word to Eelway. And the word is to hold on and prepare, and that it's time to fight back. And I sort of don't hate.
Does it annoy you?
No, it doesn't. The opposite. I sort of like that he did this, that he thought about Eelway in this.
Okay.
It's like his one redeeming thing that he does for me in this entire book. Like, I like that he considers that.
Okay. I'm just like, who is he to send them a letter and be like, it's time to fight back? They have been fighting back. They sent their princess to the castle. Like, they've been fighting back this whole time. Sure, I get it. Like, I don't know. It just seems like, what else did you think they were doing? They're fighting back.
Yeah, yes. No, you're right. Okay, now I don't like it as much anymore.
Well, sorry, I'm here for the bashing.
So Murtaugh leaves, and he spreads the news as far and as wide as he can. So, like, every tavern he stops at, every town, he has, like, this, like, I don't even know what to call them, group of riders that help him. And every time they tell Aelin's tale at a new place. And then every time they tell the tale, more riders leave that town, and, like, it spreads like wildfire.
Apt.
Thank you. I came up with that.
I love it.
So, obviously the King of Aderland is absolutely furious about Aelin killing his soldiers. And I'm assuming he's talking about the Valg princes. I can only safely assume he doesn't care about the humans.
Yeah.
And Dorian watched him and let him rage and knew that Celaena hadn't forgotten them. And he knew that when she finally returned, that they would work to change the world together. So this is like the hopeful part of the story where everybody still believes in things and everyone still has hope for a better place or a better time.
Yeah.
So, back to Celaena's point of view. They arrive at Dornell, and it was known as the City of Rivers, and it was built out of stone on this massive island in the middle of, like, several converging rivers. So there's, like, a natural river moat around it. So they cross the bridge into the city during night, and she says she can feel the Fae soldiers, like, tailing them. Because they just walked on in. Like, it wasn't... They didn't have to, like, wait for a passport or anything for her. They just, like, walk in. Yeah. No passport required.
I don't think this world has passports, but I like the idea.
So she's got Goldrin, that sword that they got from the cave. And the ring from the cave is in her pocket. And she knows that she's as much a queen as Maeve is, and she will bow to no one. So, like, we are seeing a complete flip from previous anything, like, really. Like, she is owning her queen fantasy.
Yep.
So they see Maeve, like, they go into, I guess, her throne room or whatever, and Maeve is there. Rowan bows to her. And she leaves. She doesn't give him leave to rise. So she just leaves him kneeling there.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. There are 2 wolves flanking her chair, one black and one white. And she asks Aelin to show her the magic, which is what she wanted. She wanted Aelin to have control of her magic, so now she wants a demonstration.
Yeah.
But Celaena asks for the knowledge first. So she asks how the wyrdkeys can be destroyed, where they are, and anything else she knows about them. And she's very specific in her wording because, again, with the Fae, like, they always tell they don't. But in lore for the Fae, they always have to tell the truth. But if you don't word it correctly, they can sort of make adjustments based on that. So you got to be very careful in how you word things. So Maeve actually tells her that the keys cannot be destroyed. The only thing you can do is put them back in the gate. But Maeve doesn't know how to put them back in the gate. And she never learned how before Brannon took the keys from her. And she says she knows how they feel and she knows how they look. But that's all. She doesn't know where they are.
Useful.
Right. So, like, she is really not useful.
No.
So Celaena then asks about the Valg princes. And Maeve tells her there are many species of Valg. And they are all ruled by the princes. And apparently, like, an entire human legion can be devoured by 6 princes. So, like, they are mega powerful. And Celaena just killed 3.
Kind of saw.
So, like, do you think General Narok, do you think he had a prince inside of him too? Or do you think he just had, like, a general? Because she killed all 4 of them.
How many princes are there? Yeah, she did. He clearly had something inside of him. Was there 4 necklaces?
I don't know.
Necklaces,
yeah. Pretty necklaces.
Or did he have a ring? I don't know.
I don't know either. But, like, I can't imagine the princes would be okay being, like, ordered around by a general.
Yeah.
And it seemed like that's what was happening.
Yes. I don't know.
Why don't you know things?
I'm sorry.
Just know all the things.
I can't.
Oh, wait. So Celaena tells her that she killed 3 of them with her fire and light. So he obviously was not a prince.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
And Maeve asks, like, if she knows how Brannon won such a great kingdom. And she was like, no. And he said it's because his flames helped keep the princes at bay until a whole force of soldiers could push them back. And at that moment, Celaena didn't realize that Brannon wasn't royal. Like, he wasn't born a royal. He like, won that land and created a kingdom.
Yeah.
And Maeve brings up the mark that shows up on her head. So we saw that once before in Throne of Glass, and nobody knew what the mark meant. And now we saw it again when Celaena was using her magic to fight the princes. And so Maeve, like, brings it up and says, like, do you know what that mark is? And she was like, no, all I know is that it's a sacred mark. And Maeve actually tells her it's only sacred because Brannon carried it. And that it's actually the mark of the bastard. The mark of the unclaimed, unwanted. And it marks them as nameless, as nobody.
Yeah.
So, it's a bastard mark, but it's turned into a sacred mark just because of the person who originally carried it. So, like, do we think Brannon carried it, like, on his forehead, like, for everyone to see all the time? Because that would be weird.
Yeah. I guess. But also,
or, like,
if
maybe
that's
on
the
another
case,
part of his body?
Yeah, it's just like a tattoo. If that's the case, people would have known about the mark, and they wouldn't have been like, what is this mark on her head? I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it would have been on his statues and shit.
Right. So then how does she know it's a sacred mark at all?
Because she's
Nehemia
Maeve.
told her. No, like, Aelin
Oh.
knows. I'm assuming Nehemia told her.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah, Nehemia definitely, because it is a word mark.
Yeah.
Because we were in the king's point of view in the end of the first book, and he was like, if I find out that means something, I'll have her killed immediately.
But, like, can't he read word marks?
Yeah.
So how did he not know what it meant?
I don't know. There's some logic leaps here.
I don't like this. Anyway, besides the point. So, Celaena then starts looking around and notices that there is no wood in this castle. So, like, what's the chairs and what are all the things? What are all the furniture made of? Even the dining room table is made of stone?
Yes.
Anyway, so there's no wood in the castle. And she asks Maeve, and, like, this part of the conversation I actually found very, like, genial. Like, she's just asking Maeve questions and Maeve's answering them. It's a nice, like, they're acting like they don't hate each other.
Yeah.
So she asks why the mark glowed the day she faced Cain. And Maeve sort of, I don't know if she doesn't know or if she's acting as if she doesn't know, but she sort of is unsure and says, like, maybe it was her blood recognizing the Valg the same way Brannon fought the Valg ages and ages ago. Like, maybe it's just a blood recognizing evil thing. But that doesn't seem true. But
I guess the only 2 times that it has glowed, she has been fighting
the Valg.
Valg.
Maeve says that really the only other way to kill them is by cutting their heads off.
Oh. We needed this conversation.
Yes.
Before we had our, like, spiral last week.
Yeah. So, and since in Aderlin there's no magic, so obviously she can't use her fire magic. Really, you're just gonna have to cut off a bunch of heads.
A bunch.
Yeah.
All the heads.
All the heads. And then they they keep talking, and they postulate that the King of Aderlin definitely doesn't have all 3 keys. Because if he did, the world would be, like, on fire right now.
But not fire, because that's Aelin.
Because they don't like it. But, like, the world would be encased in darkness.
Yeah. Well, which is, like, except for their little spot, because their whole point was that they don't want to be in the darkness anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would obviously be a shit show.
Yeah, so they sort of hypothesize that he can only open the portal for a few minutes to let a prince in to inhabit a body. But with all 3 keys, he could keep the portal open indefinitely and just bring armies of Valg into their world.
Good.
And as of right now, he has to use magic users' bodies. But if he has all 3 keys, he won't need to use magic users as vessels. He could use dead bodies, which is what we talked about.
Yes.
We said we didn't know. And apparently with the 3 keys, he wouldn't even need wyrdstone callers. So it would just straight up be like demon possession.
Yeah, which we don't want him to get the keys.
Obviously not, but like it's just bringing me straight back to Supernatural.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And also, like Maeve's like, this army is nothing to sneeze at. It's an army that doesn't need to sleep or eat or breathe.
Good.
Right? Like, this is promising stuff here. And guys, like, obviously, we're talking about it. Maeve is mentioning it. I think it's fair to say maybe we'll see a little bit of it in the future.
Yeah, I guess.
Still 3 more books to go. 4 more if you count Chaol's book. Blech. Yeah. Do you know what? Actually, side note. I saw somebody on one of my Facebook groups post and say, like, I just finished Empire of Storms. Now I have to read
Tower of Dawn.
She was like, do I really have to read it? And everyone's like, yes, you actually do have to read it. Because there's, you meet characters, there's important stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you important information. But everyone says, like, I've heard a lot of people say that the tandem read is, like, an undertaking.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I can only imagine. Like, you'd have to set up the books. And that's already too much work for me. Because, like, you'd have to put, like, stickies in when you're going to switch books. Like, you'd need to.
Yes. No, wait. So she couldn't be finished Empire of Storms. Because Empire of Storms is the tandem read with.
Yeah.
So she must have finished the other one. No.
Queen of
No,
Shadows.
no, you're right. No, I'm right the first time. She finished Empire of Storms. But someone else posted and said this is why a lot of people do the tandem read with Tower of Dawn and Empire of Storms at the same time because they don't want to deal with a whole book of Chaol at once.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, that's actually quite smart.
It is, yes. I just feel like it would be an undertaking.
I would love to know who created that. Like, who took all that time to go through everything and make that. Like, that is an undertaking. And I kind of want to do it.
Maybe we should when we get to those books.
That's I was thinking that, actually.
Yeah.
So maybe for our Empire of Storms, Tower of Dawn, we'll do 2 months. And we'll do tandem read. And then we can walk everybody through it, and it will be fun.
Yeah.
We can experience everything together.
I'm just thinking of our schedule. It'll be like chapters of this book and chapters in like if it's different. Oh god. Yeah.
It's going to be messy, but it'll be fine. We'll get it done. Anyway, so back to the conversation between Maeve and Aelin. So Maeve says that she thinks the king probably has 1 key, maybe 2, but she also knows that Aelin has a theory about the 3rd one, and she wants that information, but Aelin obviously won't tell her where it is.
Yeah.
So Maeve commands Rowan to tell her about it, and he has to tell her the truth, that she figured out where it is, but she refused to tell him where.
So smart.
Yeah. So Maeve commands Rowan, so she then snaps her fingers, and the 2 wolves that were standing beside her become men, and Lorcan and Gavriel appear from behind pillars, and the wolves they're not wolves anymore, they're men, but they grab Rowan and force him onto his knees, and Gavriel and Lorcan have iron whips, and they start to whip Rowan. And, like, I think, so, I keep going back and forth between Celaena and Aelin. It's the same person.
Yeah.
So, like, Aelin she comments in her head that the guys look sort of vacant. Like, you can tell that they're being ordered to do this, like, that they're not doing it of their own free will.
Yeah.
So she begs Maeve to stop, but Maeve is like, not until you answer. Like, where is that other word key that you know about?
Yeah.
And she opens her mouth, and we don't know if she's about to tell her or not, but Rowan manages to get out the word don't. And that defiance that he had broke the hold that she kept on herself and on her power. And she sort of lets it loose, and she sort of, in her brain, admits that she has been secretly tunneling into her power for days. So she's got, like, a ton built up.
Good.
And, right? She releases so much heat that Rowan's blood that has been spilling on the floor turns to steam. Like, red steam rising. How creepy. It'd be a really good Halloween effect.
Yeah, true.
We're getting close to Halloween, people. My mind is there.
I love it.
Yeah.
Here for it.
And so then when she turns to look at Maeve, Maeve's face is gone, like, super pale, and she looks scared. Good. So then Celaena sets the world on fire. It's like her favorite thing to do.
That's true. I love it too. So we're still in Celaena's point of view, but she kind of, I guess, thinks to herself that nobody is actually burning. Like, there is fire everywhere. Like, this whole town, city, I know it's not an island, it has a moat. I'm calling it an island right now. But this whole island is on fire, basically. But nobody is actually being hurt by it.
Yet.
Exactly. She also is able to just tear through all of the shields of Rowan's cadre, which I think is just like a throwaway line, but I'm like, that's something. Like, well, that is giant. That is large.
They're all hundreds of years old. Like, they've been building up. And, like, think, if they are all as powerful as Rowan.
Yeah.
That's a lot of power.
This is wild. It's very impressive. So Celaena is basically like, you said you wanted a demonstration, so here it is. Yeah, Maeve basically says her city is stone, but Celaena counters her people aren't. And then Maeve says that Aelin won't murder innocents, although she has for years. We really are bopping back and forth between the two names. It's only so much we can do.
Yeah.
This is the last book for it. The only book for it, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Maeve is just saying, like, Celaena's been killing people for years, which is true. Were they innocent? Probably not.
Yeah.
But still.
I can't imagine she had, like, a huge crisis of, like, even though she was raised by Arabin, the assassin, and, like, she had a horrible upbringing, and, like, she became, like, you know, Aderlin's assassin and whatever. She still had, like, a conscience. Like, she was still a decent person. And we know that from Assassin's Blade.
Exactly,
those stories. So, like, we know that she didn't entirely lose herself and become this monster that everyone thinks she did.
Yeah. Which you'd think Maeve would know better, but whatever.
Oh, come on. Who the fuck cares about Maeve?
Yeah. But anyway, Celaena's basically just like, Maeve wanted to know how much power she had. It wasn't to help Celaena. It was to know how much of a threat she is, basically. And it's kind of...
It's still not a good idea.
It's just, it's weird that she was like, we're gonna get you to tip-top training so that you can defeat me. It's so weird that Maeve even wanted her to figure out her power.
Like, so this is my issue with it, is that she literally could have left Celaena in the dark about her own power, could have left her floundering, could have just given her the information she wanted. She was on a path to self-destruction, 100%.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know why she would rather, like, get her to figure out her, figure her stuff out just so she had knowledge of how much power she had. To me, that's just like, oh, knowledge is better than being in the dark. Not in this case.
No.
She literally, like, forged a path to her own destruction.
Yeah. I guess...
She just helped, like, the one person that could overthrow her.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so weird that she did that. I guess her goal is eventually to have the keys, and she thinks she needs Celaena, Aelin, to get them, and then she's gonna get them from her. Like, is that where we are? I don't know. Anyway.
I don't know.
Moving on. Because there's just too much. There's more books. We'll figure it out. Celaena basically just, like, starts telling Maeve everything she's figured out through Emrys's stories. And she has realized, like, Maeve didn't give the keys to Brannon. Like, she wasn't just like, hey, take these and put them wherever. She tried to take them, and he like, basically stopped her. But in the whole process, Maeve ended up killing her beloved, Athril. In her grief over killing this person she loved, Brannon was able to take the keys from her, and he's the one who had sacked the Sun Goddess Temple, which I assume is important to note. He also left Anthril's sword in the cave where Anthril had once carved out the eye of a creature. And he left it in that cave as, like, a tribute. So that is the sword that she found. Maeve also didn't dare follow Brannon because he had the keys and all the power. And that's why he kept one. She thinks this. She obviously doesn't say it, but that's why he kept one in the amulet, to protect his line against Maeve coming back and trying to steal it all from them.
Right.
And this is why Maeve lives in Dornell and has abandoned all the land outside, and she basically built a city of stone surrounded by water to protect from Brannon and his line, because they are fire.
Which, can I just say, genius.
Yeah, so smart.
She is a genius. I don't like her, but she's smart.
She is smart. Celaena then extinguishes her fire because she knows that, like, she's in control of the power. It's not the amount of power she has, it's the control she has that is the impressive part, you know, all that bullshit.
Yeah.
Then she goes over to Rowan and just, like, bares her teeth at the twins, and they just release him, and he sags against her, and he's just, like, murmuring her name, and you're like, ugh. But then Maeve still owns him, obviously, so she calls him to her, and he just, like, starts stumbling towards her, because he can barely move. It sounds awful. Maeve then asks for the sword, because Celaena was like, this is the sword of your beloved. And its name is Goldrin. And she's just like, give me the sword and get the fuck out. But obviously Celaena refuses and says it's hers through blood and fire and darkness. And Maeve tells her that she will pay for this.
No, it's like that old, like, villain, like, you'll pay for this! And it's like,
yeah.
No, I won't.
Will I? Will I, though?
Well.
So Celaena then walks over to Maeve, takes her hand, and shows her the vision that she saw from General Narok. Yeah, that's his name. Why does it sound weird? But she shows her the vision as if it is truth of the future, not just like a possibility. So he gave her the vision to be like, just a warning, you could become what is that word? It starts with a D, dictator.
Ah, yes, yeah. I'm like,
I know. It was, the gears were processing. Yeah, so he gave it to her as a warning of like, if you're not careful, you might take the 3 keys yourself and fuck shit up and be a terrible person as well. Would she be as bad? I don't think so. But she shows Maeve this vision. So it's basically, she's in the royal castle of Orinth, and she walks out to the balcony to see a crowd who are like frantically chanting her name, and her court... I know, her court is behind her and they're in shadow, so you can't really tell who's there, but they're fierce. Goldrin is on her back, and the amulet, which is the one word key, is around her neck. And she, like, tries not to focus on the amulet, so Maeve doesn't, like, look at it.
Yeah.
Smart. But yeah, she has all the keys now, and she's used them to banish her enemies and to grow crops, and she's more than human, more than a queen. So, like, she is basically doing what the king did, but, like, she's good.
Yeah.
But the mark on her forehead is glowing blue, and the world is hers to be taken. So she shows this to Maeve as if it is a premonition of what is definitely going to happen in the future, and Maeve is pale because she believes that, like, this is a possibility. Which is just kind of funny because it was literally given to Celaena as, like, a warning of, like, don't let this happen.
Yeah, but, like, why? Like, that doesn't seem so bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like...
like, she's happy, she's got her court, everybody loves her, there are crops everywhere. Like, tell me why this is bad?
Don't know. She then tells Maeve to be more careful before threatening her or hurting Rowan. And Maeve says Rowan is hers and she can do whatever she likes with him, basically. Which is true. But then Celaena pulls out a ring that we've heard about a few times. And Maeve goes still as death and says it doesn't belong to Celaena. But Celaena says that it's hers by chance. And she's surprised that Maeve is so sentimental. Maybe it's because Maeve isn't sentimental.
Yeah.
And this will come back
to haunt us.
To haunt us. Yeah. Not likely that Maeve is sentimental. But Celaena kind of thinks like she knows Rowan gave her the sword, knowing that like he knew what the sword was when he gave it to her, and he wanted her to use it as a bargaining chip if she could figure it out, like if she was smart enough. But she isn't looking for power or safety or an alliance with Maeve. She just wants Rowan. So she offers Maeve the ring in exchange for Rowan's freedom from his blood oath, which is not a thing. Like, a blood oath is eternal. You can't just break them. This is not something that is doable.
Apparently you can.
But you can. Because Maeve agrees. And basically just, like, frees him honorably. And his cadre are all just standing there like, what the fuck? This isn't possible.
It's like, free us too, please!
Yeah. Like, this is weird. This isn't a thing. Like, what the fuck is going on? Rowan then runs to Aelin and drops to his knees, takes her wrist, and says they need to do the blood oath. So, like, he just got out of this, and he wants to jump right back in.
And, like, they don't know each other that well. Like, I feel like he's jumping into this a little willy-nilly.
He absolutely is. It's like, whoa, slow your roll. But,
yes.
Of course, they basically have a silent conversation, because Aelin does not want to do this, because he just got out of one. He shouldn't jump into a new relationship.
Exactly. It's like she's the rebound.
Yeah. But he's just like, Maeve will think twice before attacking you after you leave here if we are bound. Because together they are so much more. And, like, Maeve knows that. Like, they're even Cara Nom. Like, she'll think twice.
What?
And Aelin also kind of realizes that, like, Rowan is doing this now because he knows that she can't say no, because this would be a giant fight otherwise. But she doesn't really know what she's doing, but she basically just says, okay, and he tells her that he claims her to whatever end, which is, like, the sweetest.
Which is a huge quote in this book. To whatever end is, like, one of the big quotes for the series. Yeah. So, anyone out there getting a tattoo, that's a good choice.
Yeah. She also feels, like, a feminine warmth, like she did earlier, kind of, like, telling her that this is okay. So it's like she's being guided by a goddess, we'll say, saying that it's okay for her to do this. And Rowan promises they'll find a court to change the world together. So that's something. So then Aelin does the blood oath with him. She asks if he promises to serve in her court until he dies, and he obviously does. And he drinks 3 mouthfuls of her blood, and a thread tightens between them, binding them. And Maeve says, now that they've insulted her, to get out. Which is fair. Like, this is a bit intense. So the cadre basically runs away, and then Celaena and Rowan hurry out, and Rowan, like, isn't even going to pick up any of his shit. He's just like, we need to get out of here. She's going to kill us. Yeah. But then they stop at an inn for the night, and the next day, Rowan tattoos Celaena. So over breakfast, he drew up some sketches for her, and they're so perfect, it was like he reached into her soul. Of course.
Ah, yes.
Also, tattoo, super painful, and she kind of thinks, like, that's the point of the salt, is to remind of the losses. Like, you want the pain, basically. So while
I don't understand, are they mixing the salt into the ink, or are they sprinkling it on as they do it? Is it like seasoning?
Seasoning. Salt Bay. I think it's mixed in with the ink.
So I don't understand how salt is, well, I guess salt in a wound.
I've never saying for a reason, I guess.
Yeah, I've never had it done before, so I didn't know salt would be like, I didn't know salt is actually painful to an open wound.
I guess it would sting it, but same, like, I've never cut myself and then thought, hey, I wonder how salt feels in this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not something I've ever been like, I need to try this.
I guess now we will.
But, like, isn't tattooing, like, painful enough? Why do they
I
need to add the salt?
I know. I
it
think
hurts.
it's just a like, it's even more painful for them because they have a higher pain tolerance too.
I
but
guess.
like, they're like, I don't know. I don't think it's necessary. But anyway, that's what they do. So while she's being tattooed, she sings the prayer she should have said like 10 years ago. And she tells the gods of her parents, her uncle, and Marion's death, and to like take them into paradise and keep them safe. So basically what you do when people die. She thinks like once she goes back to Terrasen, she'll have to sing from sunup to sundown with no food or water with her knees in gravel. So like that, I guess that's like the custom. So this is just the start. Like this pain that she has while from the tattoo is an offering to the gods. So after the tattoo, Rowan helps her go to a field where she sings the song of her household, and they just like stay kneeling in the field until the morning, basically. The time passage was a bit weird here.
Yeah.
Anyway.
This is some, like, these are some, like, hard up customs, man. Like,
yeah,
having to stay in a field all, like, having to sing from sun up to sundown with no food or water with her knees in gravel. Like, that is a severe custom.
Yeah. It is intense. Wild.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So we actually get what the tattoo is now, which is good. Kind of. We kind of get what the tattoo is. So he tattooed 3 solid lines of like text. I'm assuming it's in the old language. Over her 3 largest scars. 1 line is for her parents, 1 for her uncle who was the king, and 1 for Marion. And then on her shorter scars are the stories of Nehemia and Sam. I can't really picture it.
Well, like, in my brain, the text is going sideways.
100%,
running
yes.
down.
But, like, diagonally. Mine is diagonal.
Oh, in your brain. See, mine is a straight up and down. Diagonal makes more sense.
Yeah, I doubt that her scars are straight up and down. But yeah, I'm just like, diagonally 3 lines of text, and then like, little line on top, little line on bottom. I can't think of, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't imagine her scars, let alone this tattoo.
I would actually really enjoy looking up some fanfic about it, though. Or not fanfic.
Fan art, yeah.
Fan art. Like, I think some people who can visualize things better than us probably would do a really good job getting these images out. Looking it up. Yeah, send me what you find.
Anyway, so then we pop over to Manon's point of view. I feel like it's been a hot sec. And officials and counselors from Otterlin have come to watch the war games to report back to the king. And the games are really, literally just the game Capture the Flag. So 3 of the clans are against each other. They each have a glass egg in a nest. So they need to be on offensive and defensive to get all 3 eggs. There's no killing or maiming, but they can each have 2 weapons. So Manon has Windcleaver and a dagger. You're like, maybe you shouldn't have weapons if you're not going to allow injuries. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, sorry, I lost myself. The witches are basically all wearing dyed leather of their, like, colors, so black, blue, or yellow. And their wyverns are painted with similar streaks on their wings and tails. So it's like in high school. Like, it's just games. It seems wild.
Yeah. It sounds fun.
It does sound fun. They all, like, present on their wyverns in front of the mortals in their ranks, and Astrid kind of just says, like, they're fools for not knowing what they've unleashed, like, giving these witches the power, and wyverns, like, humans are, like, dumb.
Yeah.
Which, maybe not wrong.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Not super smart on their part.
Yeah.
Like, because it's all based on control, right? Like, so obviously the King of Adderlin and whoever decided to do this, they fully believe that they have full control over all these clans of witches. And in my head, I'm like, do you?
And, like, I get it from the king's perspective, I guess.
Do you?
Because he's not.
No. But, like...
Like, I get that he thinks he has more control because of what he is.
I guess, but, like, I don't know. I think... Well, I guess that's the thing. That's sort of the downfall of all villains, isn't it? Is they think they have more control and they have absolute power when they don't.
Yes.
Or they have more confidence in themselves than they should.
Yeah.
Like, they believe in the dark and they don't believe enough in the power of light and love.
Yeah.
So, like, I guess that's his downfall, is he does think he has control and he actually doesn't, but...
Well, like, and he has 1 or 2 keys, and he thinks he's going to get the 3rd. So if he gets the 3 keys, he has absolute power. So, like, I get why he's confident, but it's dumb.
Yeah.
So basically they start the games, and the Manon's group...
Can I just say that I feel like it's been ages since we've been with Manon?
100%. It has.
Like, I'm pretty
like
sure the last time we were with Manon, was it even last week? Like, did we see Manon at all last week?
Yes, because she jumped off the... Was that last week?
I don't think that was last week. I think that was the week before.
I don't remember. But yeah, the last time was when they had to do the crossing. Yeah, it was a while. And a lot has obviously happened if, like, they've definitely been training since then.
Mm-hmm. Anyway,
yeah, that's okay. So the 13 are, like, smart. They know their strategies. They're doing good. But they're deciding to go after the blue blood egg first. So Manon ends up, basically, they end up getting the egg with very little fanfare. Very easy. The blue buds weren't really training super hard for this. They've had to, like, their customs and their praying take up so much time that, like, they haven't spent as much time training as everybody else. So she basically just gets it in less than 10 minutes. Like, but at the same time, the blue bloods and the blue bloods and the yellow legs both go after the black beak's eggs. So, like, half of their group has stayed back for defense, because it's not just the 13 doing this. Like, it's multiple clans of each group of witches. Yes. So, I guess nobody gets the black beak egg, because Manon gets the blue blood egg, brings it back to her nest. And then Manon kind of watches Astrid do a crazy move that she's learnt on her own. So Astrid jumps off the wing of her wyvern onto a yellow legs below her and, like, puts her hand to her neck to imitate, like, a killing shot. And then she lifts her arms back up and is picked up by her wyvern, who then, like, flips her around and throws her on its back. So, like, she's clearly been practicing away from everybody else. Which, you know, I think she even says, Manon's like, what the fuck? And she's like, you don't become second by sitting on your ass, you know?
Yeah.
So, but then after, Abraxos, like, playfully flirts with Astrid's blue mount, which is so cute. I love them. So then obviously they go after the yellow legs egg, because that's the only one they don't have. And the 13 let 4 other covens kind of shoot through the yellow legs, and then they rush in, and they're, like, going 3 different ways to kind of, like, mix up the yellow legs covens so that they're, like, in chaos, and they aren't near people who they've practiced with, so they can't get their order back together.
Amazing.
It's so smart. Which is what they wanted, obviously. But during all this chaos, Petra swoops in for the egg, which is so smart on Petra's part. Like,
yes,
I'm here for it, except for obviously not, but you know. Manon tries to, like, go for her, but before she can get there, Iskra gets to her first, and their wyverns start fighting, and Manon is, like, about to go for the egg and leave them to fight, but hears Petra's soul-splitting scream and sees that Iskra's wyvern has clamped its jaws on Keely's neck. and Keely is Petra's mount. And Iskra basically commands her wyvern to let Keely go. And Manon hears another scream from the blue blood matron as her daughter is basically plummeting to the rocks below. Because Keely is
dead.
Basically dead.
Yeah.
Manon is kind of just like trying to go for the egg. Still a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's a hard decision to make, man. It's like, do I do what my grandmother, like, told me to do?
Yeah.
Or do I save this, like, not a rando, but, like, this girl that's not even part of my coven? Then, you know, and Manon has no heart, remember? So she doesn't care.
Yeah, and, like, even if it was one of her 13, I'm sure her grandmother wouldn't want her to save them. Like, she really shouldn't. But, of course, she kind of thinks that, like, she's not sure if she gives the command or just thinks it, but Abraxos is like, we're going there.
Yeah.
I take this as Abraxos is doing this. But Abraxos is too small to, like, stop Keely or, like, hold Keely from falling, basically. Yeah. But she had just seen Astrid do this crazy jump thing. So she does the same, basically. Manon is kind of, like, telling herself, like, this is all for an alliance. This is for a show for the
matrons,
officials. Like, this is all, you know, it has nothing to do.
Yeah, she has no soul. She has no heart. It's not because she feels bad. It's not because she wants to save somebody's life. She's heartless.
Yeah, exactly. But then she remembers Petra calling her my Keely and seeing the unconditional love in Keely's eyes as, like, Keely is still dying. Mm-hmm. So, like, yeah, you can tell yourself it's for an alliance. But she jumps off Abraxos onto Keely's back and cuts Petra free. For some reason, Petra has passed out. I don't really...
I don't know, unless she's, like, passed out from shock because of the attack on Keely.
I guess. Or, like, maybe, like, they started falling so fast. Like, can that make you I guess, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I just don't really understand why she was passed out. But whatever. She's there as a useless person just flip-flopping around.
Yeah.
So Manon has to strap them together, and then they are approaching the bottom. But Manon says thank you to Keely for, like, living long enough that she was able to get Petra off of her back. Yeah. And then she leaps off of her back, and Abraxos grabs them, and Keely crashes on the bottom and doesn't move again, which is just heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. We don't get the rest of the games, obviously. Doesn't really matter. The Blackbeaks won. Manon is named wingleader. Her grandmother was disgusted that she saved Petra, but the blue blood matron kneels in front of her to thank her. So, like, I get being like, don't do it, it's weakness, but, like,
it's the so blue blood smart.
Matron, it's like the blue blood matron is now going to follow her into battle, basically. Like, she's gonna kneel, she's kneeling to her, like, it's good.
But in the grandmother's mind, it's not good, because now the blue blood matron is beholden to Manon, not to the grandmother. Right?
Exactly.
Like, that's another alliance for Manon, not for the grandmother. So, like, now, hypothetically, Manon can kill the grandmother if she wanted to and take over as the matron.
Which she should.
She should, totally, yeah. I guaranteed.
Yeah. Yeah, I get why the grandmother is unhappy. It just doesn't make sense with the story that she's telling Manon. If she's like, I want us to go back and fight the wastes after, like, you want the blue bloods to be behind you. So it is good that the matron is like, but yeah. Anyway, we hear then that Petra is broken in her soul after Keely died, and she can't get out of bed. And the yellow legs matron just says it was an accident due to uncontrollable wyverns, but Manon knows that Iskra ordered the kill. But she also thinks, like, this is Petra's revenge, it's not her revenge. So, like, she's gonna leave that to Petra to enact. So they all go to the mess hall afterwards for her celebration of becoming wingleader, and everyone is pumped. There's like a bunch of ale to drink. Astrid tests Manon's glass for poison before Manon can drink it. And you're like, it would be bad if she died too, but whatever. Her grandmother greets her and asks what gift they can give her, and then offers her a new cloak. And Manon knows she can't refuse, but she's also like, the cloak she has on was from her first kill of a Kraken witch. So she's like, she doesn't want to get rid of it, but she knows that she can't not take this gift from her grandmother. Mm-hmm. So the Kraken witch that we heard about, I guess 2, 3, who knows, weeks ago, is brought out. And clearly she's been tortured. But Manon notices, like, her eyes are still bright. So, like, even though she's been tortured, she's still, like, fighting.
They didn't break her.
Exactly. Manon is kind of thinking, like, all Krakens deserve death because they cursed and exiled the Iron Teeth. But while she's even thinking that, she kind of recognizes it's her grandmother's voice in her head saying those things. So she's kind of, like, slowly indoctrinating herself. Very slowly.
Yeah.
This is a process. Obviously it's a cult. Like, you can't just snap out of it. But this witch speaks up and says, the Krakens call Manon the White Demon, and she's on the top of their list of, like, kill on sight. Like, she is their number one to kill. Which is, Manon's actually kind of proud of that.
Well, yeah.
Which, yeah. The witch then also says, like, this witch talks for a second here. Like there's a lot.
They let her talk for a hot second.
Yeah, it's a bit much. But she says Manon's sisters didn't break her in the end, and that this, making Manon kill this Kraken witch, is a reminder to Manon to be what she was made to be. And it's like, after saving somebody in the games, this is like your place is heartless.
Yeah.
Go back there. Yeah. And you're like, why are they letting her speak? But it goes on. She tells her the Iron Teeth know how to end the curse, but the real secret that, like, the Krakens don't tell them is that they pity them because they aren't born evil, but they are forced into it. And the Krakens feel sorry for the Iron Teeth. And Manon basically says, enough. And
the matron, you mean, isn't it?
Oh, yes. The matron, says enough, finally.
Like, she said a lot here.
Yeah. And Manon kind of looks at her and sees that it's all true. Like, she can read it on her grandmother's face. Yeah. Like, that is the truth. They do make them this way.
Because they do legit, like, they are indoctrinated from small children to be like, you have no heart, you are soulless, like, you are pure evil, like, all of that.
Yeah.
And then they make them do the actions to reinforce that and sort of try, like, make them like it, I guess. But, like, we all know, nobody is born. I mean, I guess it's the whole nature-nurture conversation, but, like, we're not getting into it.
Not again. We've done it before. Yeah. So Manon is kind of realizing, oh shit, this is the truth, which is like a big deal.
Yeah.
She really does have a heart and the capacity to love. Oh my god.
What?
And then the Kraken witch just says, do it. And Manon kind of realizes, like, it isn't a challenge, but it's a plea. Like, this witch has been through it. And she is basically, like, pleading for death. So, like, as much as it is, like, a punishment for Manon, she's also doing this witch a favor in this moment.
Yeah. By
killing her. Which probably hurts Manon more. Like, not, like, helps her in the long run to indoctrinate herself into this. But, like, it being a mercy to kill her goes against the point of the bloodthirsty need to kill.
Yes.
Which is good in the long run for us. But anyway, so she ends up cutting her throat. Sorry, it's not funny. So later on, I'm like, and she's so nice. She's so nice. She's cutting her throat for her. She's such a good person.
Yeah.
Jesus. Anyway, so later on, Manon and Abraxos are on the Rune Mountains, and Abraxos is like smelling the flowers and rolling around. And I love it so much.
Cute little baby boy.
It reminds me of Toothless, and I love it. And Manon can't stop thinking about what the Kraken Witch said, and she thinks of Keely and of Abraxos and of helping Petra, and she thinks, like, even though they were bred to kill and strike terror, she's grateful to have Abraxos, like, because she's looking at him. He's rolling around in these flowers. Like, he was built, well, basically as a bait beast, like, even worse than what the wyverns were. But he has the capacity to love flowers, which are weakness. So, like, seeing him have a duality, she's like, maybe she can have the same. And then she thinks for the first time ever, she feels some regret that she doesn't know what the Kraken Witch's name was.
Yeah.
Like, she's never felt regret in her life. Like, imagine.
I just love that, like, this whole event was designed to, like, make the witches stronger and make them a tool for the King of Adarlan and all that to use against Aelin. And realistically, like, if Manon had been left to her own devices and to her own existence, she probably would have never started feeling these feelings. But it's actually the king's fault that she starts getting these feels. And, like, we can sort of assume where this is going to go in the future, right? Like, she's realizing that she maybe can have a heart now. What's gonna happen in 4 books' time?
Yeah. I guess we'll see. So yeah, we end up leaving her, and, like, I'm just gonna say it, this next part, the point of view changes are, like, constant. It is wild. There's just
is it
back
like
and forth
page,
and back and forth.
page?
It's what it feels like. Just, like, look at this shit.
Yeah.
Like, every second line is a change. Anyway, so we go to Chaol's point of view, and him and Aedion are on the roof of Aelin's apartment, and Aedion is celebrating because... Sorry, I did say Aedion, right? Aedion is celebrating Aelin's victory over Narak. And, like, just the general statement that she is alive and she is fighting. Like, that's ideal. So, Chaol originally came over because he had planned to tell Aedion that he knows how to, like, bring magic back. But he just hasn't told him yet, and he's kind of just keeping it to himself. And you're like, okay.
Terrible idea.
Yeah, because he's leaving in 3 days. And then, so Chaol then thinks, and I'm going to read it from the book because it's important, I think, but then I feel like he almost forgets this the next book. But he thinks Aelin is coming home, but not to him. She's coming home to Terrasen, to Aedion, to Ren, and the court that she's regathering in her name. She's coming home to war and bloodshed and responsibility. And part of him can't even fathom what she'd done to Narak. But he could not accept that part of her. So bloodthirsty and unyielding, even as Celaena, it had been hard to swallow. And he had tried to look past it. But as Aelin, he'd known since the moment he figured out who she was, that Celaena would always pick him, but Aelin would not. And it's kind of his realization that there's no future for him and her. Yeah. And, like, I like that he's realized that.
Finally. Fuck.
I feel like the next book, he completely fucking forgets all of this. It has been a hot second since I've read the next book, and maybe I'm, like, thinking of it wrong, but my memory is that he's a complete piece of shit and acts like he's still in love with her.
I don't remember that. I do remember him acting like a complete piece of shit.
Yeah, but, like,
I don't remember there being an undertone of love.
I remember him being, like, pissed that she's not wearing his ring anymore.
Oh.
And you're like, dude, what? I thought you just had this realization that she's too much for you. She's too powerful.
She's always been too much for him.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And, like, I don't actually mind the, like, Celaena would choose him, but Aelin wouldn't. Like, fine, sure.
If that's what helps you sleep at night.
Yeah. Like, I still don't think it's true, but sure. Anyway, not the point. So, he is letting her go. And he almost gives Aedion the eye of Elena to give back to her, which is why this ring thing has stuck in my brain as, like, why is he pissed about that? Like, he's, like, wanting to give her back her amulet. Like, that's I don't understand. Anyway, whatever. Yeah, but he does realize, like, he isn't ready just yet to, like, give up everything that he has of her. He tells Aedion to just tell her that he had nothing to do with Aedion. Like, when Aedion sees Aelin, just say that him and Chaol didn't work together this whole time. Right. And that Chaol is safe in NAL. Because that's the plan. He's going to be in NAL. And Aedion asks him what he'd have given to see her again. But Chaol just says, it doesn't matter. And I'm like, I feel like from this conversation, I feel like the next book is a complete 180. I just don't understand how he gets so shitty. Anyway, we'll actually go through it, because maybe I'm remembering some stuff wrong, which completely happens to me.
He is an asshole in the next book.
Oh, for sure. But maybe, like, I don't know, maybe I'm just forgetting.
But Catherine, else. He goes through so much growth in this book.
Seriously. It's clearly not this book, although I am happy that he's like, she's too much for me. I can admit that in my head. I'm like, good. Good.
Yes.
I think every woman is too much for you. Yeah. Because you are too little for everybody.
Yeah. Like, the definition of, like, small dick energy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, we go to Sorcia's point of view now, and she is lying next to Dorian, who is sleeping, and they had almost had sex, but she hesitated, and he was like, if you're gonna hesitate, we shouldn't have sex, basically. Like, he's a good person.
Yeah.
But she's thinking, like, the world is changing. Like, Aelin is alive, and magic might be released, and she cannot have him worrying about her. He is going to be a king. Like, I actually feel like this is kind of important. She thinks she's grateful for the time that she's had with him, but she also knows that she can't be queen. And, like, I think in one of the last scenes or something, Chaol was like, it'd be nice to have a healer queen. Yeah. Because Chaol is a fucking tool.
Yes. Yeah.
But
do you know what? Like, I almost think I dislike Chaol more than
Tamlin?
Yes!
I knew you were going to say, because Tamlin the tool came into my head when I called him a tool. Hilarious.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah. Love it.
Tamlin the tool. Chaol the tool.
Yep. Basically. He's just so dumb. He's just so childish. Like, I get it. He's still a child. But
there are other children in this. Like, Aelin is also a child. Dorian is also a child. Sorcia is also, like, they're all children.
Yeah, and she has realized that she can't be queen. And I think this is, like, a giant, like, she never came into this thinking that she would be queen and all. Like, this is very smart of her, and I appreciate getting this, because otherwise it would all just be a bit too rose-colored glasses.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that we get her realizing that. Anyway, then we pop right back over to Chaol's point of view, and him and Aedion are planning an escape for Sorcia and Dorian, basically. So they're all going to leave together when Chaol goes to leave for NAL, and Sorcia is going to basically run then, and he is going to try to convince Dorian to leave as well. Mm-hmm. But then Chaol is summoned to the King's Council, and when he gets there, Aedion is already inside, and so are a shit ton of other guards. which are like the weird guards that that
the
Chaol
ones that
know.
Chaol doesn't know about being a terrible captain of the guard.
Exactly. And this is really where we pop around to a bunch of different point of views. So now we're in Dorian's point of view, and he's heard of Chaol and Aedion being summoned, and he knows, obviously, that they have been working together, and he's like, now's the time, gotta get Sorsha out of here.
Yeah.
What the fuck? So he runs to her, but Amity stops them and tells them that they have also been summoned, and then other guards, is what I'm calling them, because they take them as well. So then we go over to Aedion's point of view, and he and Chaol are not shackled, so he's thinking, like, they have a chance to get out of this. Like, they're not fucked already.
Yeah. Well, they don't even know technically why they're being summoned. They just know they're being summoned.
Exactly.
So, like, they're not shackled, so it's like, they're not gonna try and do anything until they know, like, what's going on.
Yeah, like the king, if the king knows for certain that Aedion and Chaol have been working against him, they would just be in the dungeon right now. They wouldn't just be standing there. Yeah. So they have a chance. But the king tells this whole group of them, because they're all in the room now, that his spies have told him that Aedion isn't actually going to the parties he's planning, and he's sneaking around. And for some reason, he's now friends with Chaol. And that his son is dabbling with the rabble again.
Well, like, this is what I don't understand. Like, Dorian has never had, like, he's never been, I don't think his father has ever sort of put him on a, like, has made him only sleep with ladies. You know what I mean? Like, he's let him, like, playboy it and, like, dip his wick wherever he wants to.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't understand why this, like, why is it pertinent in this moment? Like, who cares that he's sleeping with a healer? And he hasn't actually dipped his wick yet. In this particular case. Yeah.
Which is sad.
Yeah.
Knowing what happens.
Don't spoil it, Catherine!
Don't spoil it. Yeah, it's weird because I think the reason, which you're like, how does the king know this? But the reason is because he's catching feelings. Like, that's the only reason the king cares. And the only other time that Dorian caught feelings was for Celaena, who he's also calling rabble, and you're like, okay. But yeah, Dorian basically objects immediately and says he doesn't want her to be a part of this and, like, let her go, basically.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want her to stay here. And the king just agrees and then, like, snaps his fingers and his guards force her to her knees. And Aedion and Chaol just look to each other, and Aedion thinks, like, they will fight their way out of this. Chaol's point of view now, and he knows he needs to save Sorsha and then Aedion, because, like, the king won't kill Dorian, because
it's his
that
child.
Would be ridiculous. Yeah.
But, like,
Dorian,
he's giving himself too much to do. He has to save Sorsha and Aedion, like, dude.
Also, Aedion
can save. Aedion's better than you. Like, he can take care of himself.
Let's right size this. Yeah. Can he though? Anyway, Dorian tells the king that he'll tell him anything, but the king asks him, like, why Chaol and Aedion have been meeting, and Dorian says he doesn't know. And I'm like, I get that Dorian's just, like, trying to save Sorsha, but, like, he doesn't know enough to be like, I'll tell you anything you want to know. Yeah. Like, he literally doesn't know much. Although he does know why they were meeting. He just isn't telling the king.
Yeah.
And you're like...
Obviously the king has a bullshit radar.
Yeah. The king then tells Dorian and the group that there's been a spy in the castle for months and asks Dorian to tell him who it is. And Chaol is, like, working up to say that it's him. But Aedion speaks first. And he says, like, Chaol, the reason they were hanging out is because Chaol was blackmailing him to get information that his father would then be able to give to the king for a favor.
Genius.
Yeah. And then he says that they can all burn because his queen is coming for them, and he throws his ring, like, at the king.
So he's, like, sacrificing himself in this moment to try and save everybody
Yes.
else. Which, like, if they thought Aedion was a dick before, like, I hope they eat their words right now, because he is literally saving the rest of them. So, like, fuck you, Chaol.
Kind of. Yes. And Chaol knows that Aedion did this for him because Aedion knows that Chaol and Aelin have a relationship, and he thinks that, like, Aedion thinks that he's helping Aelin by saving Chaol, but Chaol's just there like, she would have been much better off if Aedion was around, not me.
Yes.
Which is true.
Yeah.
Ugh. And the king then obviously has Aedion shackled and says maybe he'll wait a month or so to execute him in case someone gets it in her mind to try to save him. And
smart.
Chaol kind
like,
of...
it's very
It's
smart.
so smart. So smart. Chaol kind of wonders, like, if the king knows who she is type deal.
Like, if it's...
Like, what he actually knows. Yeah. Then Dorian is just like, can you let Sorsha go, though? But the king is like, no, we can't release the true traitor.
Bum,
Dun,
bum,
dun,
bum.
dun.
We didn't even practice that.
We did not. We're so good. So we go over to Sorsha's point of view now. And the king tells her that her letters were very interesting, and Amity found one in the rubbish bin.
What a dummy.
Right? And we actually got the scene where she threw it in the rubbish bin. I think it was like one time when Dorian came around and she was like, oops, throw this out. And you're like, oh, you're such a moron because you're in love. So Sorsha is kind of thinking like, Dorian can still get out of this because he didn't know that she was a traitor. And she tells the king that he has destroyed everything and he deserves what's to come. And then she tells Dorian that she loves him.
Aww.
And Dorian just, like, is begging his father to, like, exile her or banish her. But the king just says no. And then we jump over to Chaol's point of view because Sorsha no longer has a point of view. Because at the king's no, one of the guards swings his sword and her head falls to the ground.
Amazing. Not actually amazing. It's terrible.
I was surprised at how fast it all happened.
Yeah.
So obviously Dorian starts screaming, Aedion starts roaring.
Of course he's roaring.
Right. But the guards just take Aedion away because they're like, no. And and then Dorian is like scrambling to Sorsha. Chaol
Do you think he's
draws
going for the head or the body?
I know. I was kind of thinking that. I don't know. I think he'd go for the head and bring it to the body.
Oh.
I don't know.
Like he could fix it, like put it back together.
I guess it's bad. So yeah, Chaol draws his sword and the king just rolls his eyes, which is like so baller. I'm like, damn. But he just tells Chaol to go back to his father and not to leave the castle disgraced.
But like, in all fairness, like, it would be nothing for the king to just kill Chaol too.
I know!
And he's like just letting him go.
I know, and I'm like, Chaol should have just fucking left.
Yeah.
At this point. Yeah. If he left at this point, it would be so much better.
Yeah.
But he does not, because he is finally standing up for Dorian and something he believes in now.
Fuck.
And like, cool, good job.
Time and a place.
This is the wrong time. You're making this worse. But Chaol says he will not serve him. There's one true king, and he is not on the throne. And he also says there's a queen in the north who will beat him again. And what the two of them, the true king, which is Dorian, and Celaena, Aelin, we'll call her here, what they represent is what the king fears, basically. Like, they're gonna defeat him, is basically what he's saying. And then, of course, the king orders Chaol's death, and a crossbow snaps. So he's gonna die like this. He's dead, basically.
Yes.
And some hidden guards approach, but Dorian plunges the room into ice, and it freezes the bolt in the air and saves his life.
How does a bolt get frozen in air?
Mid-air frozen. Don't know.
Love it.
So you're like, yay, but also this is bad. The king is not at all surprised that Dorian has magic, and uses his magic to push back at Dorian. And you're like, oh shit, the king also has magic. Cool. Chaol is just there, stunned, but Dorian tells him to run. And he also tells Chaol, when he comes back, to burn this place to the ground. Because I guess Dorian thinks he's about to be murdered.
Yeah.
And he's doing his one last thing to save. Because he thinks, like, magic is going to... Like, his father's going to kill him for having magic. But then Crackling Black hurtles towards them from behind the throne. And this is, like, the king's power. It's, like, darkness and shit. But then light explodes from Dorian, and they're all, like, fighting.
Yeah.
And Chaol kind of has a realization, like, this was a trap for all of them, and they all fell in it. Like, Aedion came out as a traitor, Dorian showed his magic, Sorsha is dead, and he's now gotta run. He's like, well, we just fucked everything
Well, and
up.
Chaol proved that, like, he wasn't loyal to the king. He's loyal to Dorian. So, like, they literally all fucked themselves.
Yeah, which I don't think that was really a secret, but still, like, they all fucked themselves over here. Chaol tells Dorian that he loves him, and then he runs. We jump over to Aedion's point of view, and Aedion thinks it was an easy choice to protect Chaol for Aelin. And the castle starts shaking, and he assumes Dorian is helping Chaol escape, and he thinks he's okay with dying, but he does wish he could have seen her just once. I love Aedion. Then we go over to Dorian's point of view, and the king's black power is overwhelming him, but all he can see is Sorsha dying, and it happened too fast. But, like, Chaol had also called him his king, and he had to save Chaol. Which is, like, I get that it all happened so fast, but it's almost like saying he loves Chaol more than Sorsha. I just don't know if that's really necessary.
Maybe
it's
not.
Like,
but, it's also, I can imagine it being true. They've been
of
best
course,
friends for, like, 15 years.
Yeah, for sure.
Him and Sorsha didn't
Dorian...
even have sex.
Yeah. Dorian is also kind of just like, okay, well, the king's gonna kill me now.
Yeah.
But the king tells him he isn't going to kill his gifted son, and he pulls out a black collar. And the other guards hold him and put it on, and as they're, like, putting it on, he thinks of Rowan and Kaltain, and how much a ring can do. What is gonna happen with this collar.
Yeah.
Which we know more about, so very scary, very bad. We go over to Chaol's point of view again, and he is sprinting to Dorian's room, and he grabs Fleetfoot, which I love. I love it.
But, like, he has to get the dog.
I know. It's just like, I just love that he does it. Anyway, he grabs Fleetfoot and brings her to the passage off of Celaena's room, where he's going to escape out of. He grabs Damaris, which is the sword that's in there, and he grabs some gold from this tomb.
Genius.
And he tells... Yeah, I know. So smart. He tells Mort where he'll be in case she comes back. He also grabs the bag of magic books, and he opens the iron gates, and he just is kind of, like, wondering if Dorian is even alive anymore. He goes to Celaena's apartment, and Ren is there. And he tells him what happened, and Ren just says, like, they have to save Aedion.
Yeah.
And then he asks about the woman that was beheaded, and asks if she was a healer, and we figure out that this is his contact that he had in the castle. Yeah. So Chaol and Ren kind of just realize that they're the only two people left in this rebellion now, and they agree that they need to save Aedion and Dorian. So they're forming a truce here. We go to Manon's point of view, and she is the wingleader, obviously. She and half of the Iron Teeth are being sent to Morath tomorrow to serve the Duke, who we haven't seen at all this book. But they're also to be ready to fly at a moment's notice and fight. Mm-hmm. The other half of the Iron Teeth are going to stay where they are now at the Ferrying Gap under Iskra's order. Manon asks what, obviously, the matron is going to do, but the matron is just, like, annoyed that she dared ask a question, but says that she's going to be staying here, but she'll be in Morath in the summer, and she has work to finish here.
I wonder what kind
Interesting. I know. So they haven't actually spoken since Manon killed the Kraken, but Manon knows that next time it will be one of the 13.
Yeah.
If she disobeys or, like, shows heart again, she'll have to kill one of the 13. So they leave her, the 13, and half of the Iron Teeth, and they fly at night so that they're on scene, because obviously they don't want people to see their giant mounts and know their numbers. And Astrid flies beside Manon and smiles, but Manon doesn't let herself enjoy it because they have work to do. And Manon was not born with a heart or a soul, and she doesn't need them. She needs to defeat the king's enemy and then take back their kingdom and go home at last. You're like, you did so much work on yourself, and now we're back to this.
Yeah. But think about it, though, is like, oh yeah, she wasn't born with a heart or a soul, yet the only reason she's thinking this is because she doesn't want to hurt the 13. Like, she doesn't want to hurt her buddies.
Yeah, and, like, she wants to go home.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
You do have a heart and a soul, Manon.
Yeah, you want a home. Like, you want things. Like, you're not just evil incarnate. Anyway, so that's basically where we leave Manon for the book. Is she's like, I have no heart or soul. Then we get a third party point of view. It was kind of just weird. I don't know why it had to be third party, but whatever. So a cloaked man walks onto the docks in the slums, and he pulls out a blade with an eagle pommel, and he thinks of all it had embodied, but he looks to the new blade he has, a king's blade, from a time when good men served, and he would see that again. He doesn't have a position anymore, and no title except for Oathbreaker, Traitor, and Liar. And then he throws the sword into the river, and it's never to be seen again. I don't know why it had to be third person point of view. Like, why? It's it's Chaol. He's throwing his, like, sword. His... what's it called?
Yeah.
He's throwing his, like, captain of the guard sword into
the river. I guess because it's like he's shedding his old life and becoming this, like, non-person. Right?
I guess.
He's, like, becoming a shadow of a person because he's fallen from his position.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think, it was like one page too. I was like, this could have been in his point of view. He could have been like,
yeah,
I'll see this restored, throw this sword, whatever. Yeah. But anyway, whatever. I didn't write the book.
Didn't you?
So that's where we leave him for the book and all of those points of view. So Sorsha is dead, Aedion's locked up, Chaol hates himself, and Dorian is basically fucked.
Yeah.
So then we go over to Celaena. She's having a tiny bit of a better time, I guess. Yeah. But she's thinking, like, Rowan is not submissive at all with this blood oath. Which, like, obviously, what did you expect? Yeah. He's very bossy, and, like, all of it is, like, for her own good. And I just love it. He's just like a mother hen. But they're basically arguing over her plan, because she wants to return alone as Celaena, not as Aelin, and do what she needs to do. But he thinks, like, it's basically a suicide mission, which, sure. Because, like, even Celaena didn't complete the mission that she was sent here for. Like, she didn't kill the Ash River
Yeah.
king and prince, the royals. Celaena kind of thinks like she had sent a warning to the Ash River king and to the Queen of Eelway about the king's threats on their lives. So like, as Celaena, if she didn't like do her missions, basically the king was like, I'll kill Nehemia, then I'll kill her parents, and I'll kill her brother. So she has warned the Queen of Eelway that the king might do that.
Might try and assassinate her.
Yeah. She also thinks like she needs to talk to Chaol and end things.
My God.
And it was already ended before she left. I feel like they dragged this out, and it was not necessary. Like, she tried to kill him and was like, you'll always be my enemy. I think that's enough of a breakup.
Yes.
I don't think she needs to go back and be like, hey, we're broken up.
Yeah.
Like, I think that was good enough. But she takes his ring off. So, like, she has processed
the breakup.
And I thought he did too. But then next book, I feel like he doesn't have it processed at all. But anyway. She basically is telling Rowan, like, he's too conspicuous to go with her. Like, he is Fae.
Yeah.
And if he goes as a hawk, he'll be stuck like a hawk because magic doesn't exist over there. So, like, he can't go with her. Which I think is fair.
Yes.
She says she needs to stealthily get the key from Erebin and then go north. So that is her plan. She's going to go back to get the key and go north. She then is going to call in every favor to Celaena, to Aelin's family, to everyone, and then she is going to rattle the stars. And she promises to send for him soon and when the time is right.
Rattle the stars is another, like,
yeah,
it's significant. We get a lot of the quotes that become like the famous quotes. We get a lot of them in this one.
I know, which is why it's probably like it's the turning point in the series and one of the better books. Yeah. She then asks him what he prayed to Mala for the morning before they saw Maeve, and he says he prayed for two things: to ensure that she survived, and then a selfish wish, a fool's hope. And then he just kind of thinks it came true. Aww. So he had wished that he could go with her and not be stuck to Maeve anymore. And that moves her, and also the fact that she's leaving him makes her sad. So she is crying a bit, and he wipes a tear from her cheek and says that Mala must think that they make a good pair. And she throws herself at Rowan and gives him a hug. And I'm like, I just wish she threw herself at him in a different way. But but she boards a boat that night, and they're put below deck so like the passengers don't know the route out of this reef. But when she gets back on deck, there's just a hawk flying there, and it swoops low to brush her cheek and then turns back with a cry. And you're like, Rowan knows the whole way now anyway. It doesn't really matter. But she just thinks like she will get the word key from Erebin, and she'll get the other word keys, she'll put them back in the gate, free magic, and destroy the king no matter how long it takes. So like she's got a plan. Yeah. And then she thinks to herself like she is Aelin Ashriver Galathinius, Queen of Terrasen, heir of powerful bloodlines, and she will not be afraid.
It's like when she was in Endovier and she was like, my name is Celaena Sardathian and I will not be afraid.
She's accepted that she's Aelin.
And now she's like, I'm not Celaena. I'm Aelin Ashriver Galathinius.
And it's good because now we won't have to fuck around with different names.
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah.
And that's
so
it.
I love it. I love that book. Big fan.
We're done. Book 3.
Madness. Yeah. I love this series. I love this book. I understand why they had to separate, but I obviously hate it.
Yeah.
I feel like, well, I guess it kind of ends on a cliffhanger with Dorian and Aedion. But yeah, like, I'm also like,
Aedion's in jail, about gonna be executed. Dorian is being invaded by a Valg prince. Like,
but like, I don't find it cliffhanger.
Yeah,
like I wouldn't have to like run out and read the next book, which is terrible. But it's because the only person I care about is Celaena.
Yeah,
Aelin.
Where does this rank, like, in the 7, I'm saying, books? Where does this one rank for you?
I think it might just be, like, descending order. So, like, my favorite is Kingdom of Ash.
Okay.
And then Empire of Storms.
Right.
And then Queen of Shadows. And then
This one.
Heir of Fire. Right. And then Throne of Glass. And then Crown of Midnight.
I'm still, like, thinking in my head, what even happened in Crown of Midnight? Like, besides, like, Aelin, like, scratching up Chaol's face.
Celaena at that point.
Yeah.
But yes. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
How is it a whole book?
Time passed.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think, this one ranks, like, I think around the same.
Yeah. I love everything that happens after this, too.
Yeah.
So, I know. Like, Empire of Storms kills my soul. Kingdom of Ash also kills me. So, like...
Yeah, it's, like... This is sort of, like, our turning point book, like you said. Like, this is when the story starts to turn. So, like, people find that this series is really slow to start. And, like... Yeah. I sort of see what they mean. I disagree a little bit because I actually really like Throne of Glass, but, like... Yeah. When you read Throne of Glass, you never think that this is where the story is going to end up.
Oh my god, no.
Right? Like
I was like, oh, this is just a standalone book. Like, it's over.
Yeah. So, yeah. You know, it's one of those things where, like, if you can make it through, like, if Throne of Glass is not your thing, and if, I mean, Queen of Shadows isn't your thing, it's not hard.
Crown of
Midnight, sorry. If Crown of Midnight is not your thing, like, this is where it gets, like, ooh, good.
Yeah. Like, Jeff is reading them now, and he got through Throne of Glass, he got through Crown of Midnight, and then he started looking at Assassin's Blade, and I was like, I don't think you should read that one yet, because you're not going to like it. And then he took a break to read The Hunger Games, because he just wasn't in yet. But now he's since read Heir of Fire and Queen of Shadows, and now he's reading Assassin's Blade, which is a fucked up order, but, you know, we're doing what we can. We're getting the books read. But I think he finished that last night, so, like, he's getting into Empire of Storms now, and I'm like, oh my god, so exciting. Although so much happens in Queen of Shadows that I love, too. I love
Queen of Shadows so much. I don't even know why, really. I just really love it.
I love some of the characters we meet.
Yeah.
Especially a woman. And I just love them being back and, like, handing people their asses. Yeah. It's like, I just love it. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So I guess we're going to wrap it up for this month.
Woo!
So if you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in any of our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions, please reach out to us by email at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com, or you could check us out on Instagram, Facebook, not really Twitter anymore, at Coffee and Co-Read, or TikTok at coffee.coread. And do not forget, for the Spotify listeners, to check out the poll that we've got on our Would You Rather this week.
Yeah. So next week is a whole new book. Yay! And it's one that we both were like, I guess we should do this for the podcast. Yeah. But then once we started reading, we just finished reading it, and now we have to read it again because we got so hooked into it.
It's a very, very, very popular book right now. It's all the
rage.
And
the second one is coming out soon.
Yeah. So that's why we,
if you haven't guessed already,
that's why we chose to do it for the month of October, because the second book actually comes out in November. So
yeah, and we're super pumped. But if you haven't guessed already, it's Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. So we're excited.
We are very excited.
But we're starting with chapters 1 to 9. So if you haven't read the book, perfect time to pick it up with us. If you can find it, because I know that is an issue sometimes too. But make sure to follow along. And if you're enjoying our chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you get our content. And thanks for listening, everyone. And we'll see you on the next page.